Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of May. Today, the final countdown to the coronation is on. King Charles will hold a special celebration tonight as he prepares to fulfil his destiny tomorrow. The votes are in. Goes from bad to worse for the Conservatives as Labour gains seats in local elections across the country. Our reporters are live around the UK.
Yes, well, we're here. What could this mean for Rishi Sunak, though? One Tory councillor who lost his seat has blamed Westminster as a key factor in his party's performance. And it's never too late to relive your dreams. We meet the 90-year-old former dancer who was invited to the Queen's coronation all the way back in 1953.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Coronation Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
And it is lovely to be here at Buckingham Palace because you do get a sense. I mean, I know nothing has happened as yet, but it's been nice to be part of the build-up, hasn't it, all week on GB News. And you do get a real sense here when you see all the preparations going on. I mean, even just people moving stuff about and cutting the grass and everything all being organised. You get a real sense of the occasion for tomorrow because it is that little bit of history, a big bit of history,
well,
actually.
It's a big week for the United Kingdom, isn't it, in our history. And we just had the most spectacular sunrise over the Mall, beautiful pink skies coming up and lighting up all those wonderful flags that line the Mall. And you can see all the tents down the side of the Mall as well. So many of them now. When I was here earlier on this week, I think there were 15 that I counted. Probably more like 30 today.
Yeah.
So people are coming down to London
Desperate
and getting
to get
their
stuck
spots.
in.
Yeah,
And who can blame them? I mean, you might want to just stay and watch it on TV or even listen to it on the radio rather than camp down here. But good luck to them if that's what they want to do.
Have you seen the weather?
Well, I'm not quite sure about the forecast. I mean, is it talking light rain now?
Yeah, well, let's fingers crossed. The last I heard is that it is unsettled, which is better than the thunderstorms that were being talked about yesterday. So let's just keep across the weather forecast. That's very, very important. Do let us know what your plans are. Are you going to be heading down to London? Are you having a street party? Are you going to brave it in the rain? Or are you going to be watching it on the telly on GB News? Do let us know. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Talking about being unsettled, the Conservatives might be feeling a little bit unsettled this morning. Results are continuing to fly in for the local elections that took place across the country.
Well, the Conservatives' results are already looking bleak, but the spoils are being divided between Labour and the Liberal Democrats.
But with only 64 councils counting votes overnight, we're not going to know the full extent of the picture until much later on today. Let's bring in our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. What do you make of it so far, Tom?
Well, we're starting to see a picture emerge here, and frankly, it's not pretty for the Conservative Party. We all knew that this was going to be a very tough election for the Tories, who, of course, have been trailing around 14, 15 points behind in the national polls. But sometimes things are a little bit different in local elections. And really, looking at the detail of this, we have had two big council gains for the Labour Party so far. One in Stoke-on-Trent and one in Plymouth. Now, these aren't necessarily the sort of places that you'd think that the Labour Party would be storming ahead in unless they were on course for a pretty decent victory at a general election. Stoke-on-Trent is often spoken about as a sort of Brexit capital of the UK. And the fact that the Labour Party has made such strong advances in that area in particular should be indicative of areas that have become to be known as the Red Wall. For the Conservatives' part, they have been saying that we should really be comparing what is going on now with 1995. They say that if the Labour Party wants a 1997-style election victory, we need to look at what happened at the local elections in 1995. What happened then? The Conservatives lost 2,000 seats and the Labour Party gained 1,800 seats. We're not looking like that's going to happen this morning. It looks like at the bad end the Tories may lose around 1,000 seats. The Labour Party, for their part, say that that's a completely wrong comparison to make 1995, however, because many more seats were up for grabs then. There were seats being fought in Scotland and in Wales as well as in England, whereas this time it's just in England. So we're starting to see a bit of a battle of spin take place now in terms of how bad is it for the Tories? Is it very bad, or is it less bad than we saw, for example, in the 1990s? This is the sort of battle of airwaves that we're going to be seeing a lot more of over the next few hours.
Yes, of course, and the local elections are seen, aren't they, as a test of Rishi Sunak's leadership. And he has already conceded that last night and today will be tough for the Tories. He's warned about that. But he's insisted that the Tories are moving away from the box set drama of Boris Johnson's leadership and also the short Liz Truss administration as well. You were tweeting overnight, Tom, that there was pizza being delivered to number 10. How do you think it's going down in Downing Street?
Yes, personally bought by the Prime Minister, I've been told. 10 boxes of pizza for those working at Conservative campaign headquarters overnight. I don't know if it's all been eaten yet. I suspect it has been. But clearly it is a long night for the Conservative Party. And the difficulty here is that only around a quarter of these votes have been counted so far. The vast bulk of the counting is going to be taking place from this morning onwards. So frankly, it's going to be a long day, and we may well yet see some regional variation take place too. We're going to be keeping our eyes on these numbers, as no doubt is the Labour Party headquarters, the Lib Dems and the Tories spinning out their best results each.
What do we make of the turnout, Tom? Because, I mean, there is an argument to be made, isn't there, that perhaps some Tory voters, because they're fed up, have just stayed away.
Yes, this is what some opinion pollsters have been saying really over the last year or so, that there hasn't been such a surge in support for the Labour Party as much as Conservatives who might feel like they're going to sit on their hands this time round. It has to say turnout does not look particularly high in this set of local elections. Turnout's never particularly high in local elections. And there's the added complication this time around that this was the first set of elections where people needed in-date physical identification to vote. And anecdotally, that doesn't seem to have changed a great deal of turnout, but here and there have been some people who have been turned away at the polls. It has to be said, more likely to be elderly people than young people, and judging by how the polls go, how that demographic distribution of votes go, that might hurt the Conservatives more than other parties.
OK. Tom, for now, thank you.
Well, let's get the latest results from Hull now with our reporter Anna Riley. Good morning to you, Anna. And it's been a good night for the Lib Dems, hasn't it?
Good morning. It has, Ellie. The Lib Dems are celebrating here after they've actually increased their hold on power in the council, getting an additional 3 seats. That was 2 that they gained from Labour and another seat from one non-aligned councillor. So very happy here for the Lib Dems. It was on a knife edge because last year the Lib Dems did win, but before that Labour had held power for 10 years. The turnout was low here, though. It was only 22% of people that actually came out to cast their vote, less than a quarter of people in the city, and we still don't know what implications those new voter ID rules have had with that turnout. We've heard reports of people not having the correct ID and some people even being turned away for wearing face masks as well. It's also worth bearing in mind that Hull is a traditional Labour red wall seat. We've got 3 MPs here that are all Labour, so it'll be worth looking out for the national elections next year to see if Lib Dems can get a hold on those as well, like they have in the local elections.
OK, Anna, thanks very much indeed. Let's get some more analysis, should we, from our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Morning to you, Nigel.
Good morning.
What do we take from all of this? Because it's not just about the Conservatives performing badly, it's where that support has gone. Labour seems to be doing well, but so do the Lib Dems, so do the Greens, if you look at the national picture across England. Does that really reflect what we could see in the general election?
Well, we have to wait till later on in the day when more results come through. I mean, the key thing for Labour for a general election win is when the national vote share is worked out, which we'll probably have a better idea by late this afternoon. What you want to see is what Labour wants to see is that they're 10 points ahead of the Tories. And at the moment, all we can do is watch the figures as they're coming through. The key figure to look for is the number of Labour gains and the number of Tory losses. At the moment, the Tories are standing at 169 losses, Labour 103 gains, Lib Dems doing well on 49. That's obviously going to change during the day. So your kind of target figures are, as Tom's just said, if the Tories lose 1,000 plus seats, that is a disaster. 750, bad but not awful. Anything below that, say sort of 500, it'll be few at Tory central office.
And I mean, for the Labour Party, they'll be looking at the polls this week nationally. Some of them have them at 43%. It will be really interesting to see if that's reflected at local level.
Yes, it will. I mean, at the moment, if you take the average of the polls, Labour have been going down a bit. So you're looking at a sort of 15 to 16-point lead. That, if all goes well, would translate into a 10-point lead of national vote share and put them on track for the general election. It's quite important they've won councils like Stoke-on-Trent. There are 3 Tory MPs in Stoke-on-Trent that Labour lost at the last election. They obviously need to get that one back. Plymouth is an interesting one, but probably it's got a lot more to do with the council leader cutting down 110 trees there and having to resign. There's a local issue there. And of course, remember that all politics are fundamentally local, so there's a lot of local issues coming in here. So some councils will be going because there is a local problem, a local situation. Other Tory councils will suffer because of the national picture.
I mean, that's what makes this all very difficult, isn't it, Nigel? In the sense that, I mean, we know some Tory councillors already have said, well, this is all down to Westminster, but of course it may well not be.
No, that's right. I mean, it really does depend on your local area. So, for instance, if you have a pothole outside your front door, that's going to matter more to you than whether migrants are crossing the channel or perhaps even the cost of living crisis. You want to get that pothole fixed. And so you'll be thinking about electing people who will do that. So that's what it comes down to the local level. But overall, what I've detected out there, both from MPs who've been on the campaign trail and some of the candidates, is there's a kind of mixture of anger and apathy. Anger at politicians in general because of the craziness that we've suffered over the last year, and apathy, thinking that will voting really matter? It doesn't seem to change anything. They're all as bad as each other. And in fact, some of the candidates have been telling me they've been getting a lot of abuse on the doorsteps when they go canvassing. So it's a strange sort of picture out there. I think probably for everybody, cost of living is probably the top issue. These are things that local authorities can't really do much to help.
I mean, that low turnout would suggest that there is anger and apathy in the general public at the moment.
Yes, no, but I think that's right. I think people are generally fed up with politics. And things have stabilised, obviously, after we've lost Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. Certainly Rishi Sunak has sort of steadied the ship slightly. But people are still very angry. I mean, you know, there's Partygate still kind of below the surface out there, people angry about that. The problem for Keir Starmer is, although at last he's coming up with some decent policies and certainly a kind of a direction of travel, Labour are not great about putting across exactly what they're going to do. So at the moment, it's anger with all politicians, and it's not like, oh, we've got Keir Starmer on the other side, he will save us. There isn't that feeling out there either. And that probably will explain if we get a really low turnout. Turnouts at local elections are always below 40%, but this one is looking nearer 30. If we get a really low turnout, it will show that kind of disillusion with politicians as a whole.
Yeah, no, fair point. Nigel, thanks very much indeed. Would love to know what you think about all of that, whether perhaps you've stayed away because you're feeling disillusioned, or, you know, what's the point in voting? I don't know. See, I always vote. I always vote, just because I just think it's important to have your democratic say.
Well, it is. It's a democratic right, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you can understand that. But let us know if you did stay away. Or how do you feel about voter ID, taking voter ID?
See, I didn't mind that.
No, I didn't at all. But I wonder if that did deter people, or in fact, if that kept people away.
Yeah, do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk. It's 6:15. Also for you today, members of the RMT have voted to continue strikes over the next 6 months. Workers at 14 train operating companies have already announced plans to walk off next weekend, disrupting travel to the Eurovision Song Contest in Liverpool.
Schools say they're increasingly struggling to recruit teachers, with tens of thousands of vacancies. The Recruitment and Employment Confederation says issues over pay are not being addressed. Teachers are embroiled in an ongoing dispute, with more strikes threatened later this year.
And police say that disruptive protests in Windsor will be treated with a lower tolerance level over the Coronation weekend. About 1,000 officers from Thames Valley Police are going to be on patrol, their number peaking for the Coronation concert in Windsor on Sunday.
Now, London is braced to expect hundreds of thousands of revellers descending on the capital, with disruptions and delays to public transport expected over the weekend.
So, what do you need to know if you're making the journey yourself? Who better to ask than Simon Calder, travel correspondent for The Independent. Morning to you, Simon. There's so many people want to get down here to see this little piece of history. So, what are the best ways to plan around this?
Well, the very much the message, and good morning to you both, is go by public transport, and in particular take the train. And that is going to be really significant because, of course, the event's taking place in central London, and pretty much a full service will be running into all the main London stations. The one exception is from London Victoria, to Gatwick and Brighton, but you can get alternative trains to London Bridge. And I think there will be tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of people coming into the main stations, and they should have a fairly straightforward journey, I hope. They're even, in the case of Great Western Railway, laying on extra trains. So if you get up early, you leave Cardiff at 5 in the morning, you'll be in the capital just after 7, and you can make your way to pretty close to where you are, actually, Stephen and Ellie, and enjoy the atmosphere there. The underground, well, exactly where you are, you all know that you're about a 4 or 5 minute walk from Green Park Station. Transport for London says all of the stations are going to be kept open. However, it might be the case that you will find that some particular stations have one-way systems put in, or they are temporarily closed for entries or exits. But it will be fairly well marshalled, as you will know, and I've been exploring London over the past couple of days. The whole place is full of marshals who will be wearing high-vis jackets and telling you where to go. Really, my concern is actually about Windsor on Sunday, when you're going to have over 20,000 people flooding to that lovely Berkshire town, and then they've all got to get home after the big Coronation gig, and that's going to be quite challenging. A lot of them will probably get back to central London, to London Waterloo Station, only to find that the last tube has gone. So that's going to be a challenge. The airports, of course, we've talked about the strikes which are taking place at Heathrow Terminal 5, security staff walking out there, no great disruption there. And, well, you just mentioned in the headlines, looking ahead to next weekend, where we've got the ASLEF strike on Friday and the RMT strike on Saturday, shutting down large parts of the rail network, particularly in England, but not nearly so much in Scotland and Wales.
And of course, next weekend's action is going to affect Eurovision in Liverpool, isn't it?
It is, and there's a huge amount of concern about that. The RMT union has said, we don't target events, we just want to strike on Saturdays because that's going to hit the highest number of passengers. I was talking to the boss of ASLEF, who was striking on Friday. That's the train drivers union, Mick Whelan. He said, this isn't our strike, it's the government strike. They are driving this. Now, we also had overnight the RMT union saying we have a 91% mandate for further industrial action, and they say that shows that the offers on the table are nothing like as good. That's met an immediate repudiation overnight from both the Transport Secretary Mark Harper, who said he was very disappointed, and for goodness sake, just let your workers vote on the deal we have offered. Similar message from the rail delivery group representing train operators. They are saying the RMT seems very keen on having votes to extend the strike, but not to settle it. And can I also just mention, if you are going to be using a station tomorrow, whether that's a national rail station anywhere in the country, or indeed the London Underground, you will get a special message. And this is actually starting from this morning. Just in the past few minutes, it's been announced that King Charles III and Queen Camilla will actually be making the announcements. I mean, not in person. They've got one or two other things to do, but they have teamed up. They've recorded a special announcement where Camilla says, wherever you are travelling, we hope you have a safe and pleasant journey. And the King says, and remember, please mind the gap, which obviously is between the platform and the train, although some people, I guess, will think it's between social classes or indeed amount of wealth. Anyway, I'll just leave that there.
Oh. Simon, don't be cynical. Look, talking of money, though, if people are thinking, do you know what, we will head down for the weekend, what about staying overnight in London? Because that is going to cost a lot of wonga.
It certainly is, and if you are staying in a five-star hotel, which I'm assuming that you and Ellie will be doing as normal, then if you've got anything for less than £1,000, you're doing well. Budget hotels, particularly the sort of cluster around London Waterloo and Blackfriars and Southwark, they've all been doing well. Last few rooms selling out at well over £200. It's well worth, if you're suddenly deciding to come down, and you're very, very welcome in London, by the way, very looking forward to welcoming lots and lots of people there. Then there's lots of budget hotels in places like Woolwich. Now, you might think, Woolwich, that's miles out of town in South East London. Well, since the Elizabeth line went in, it's only about 20 minutes from the West End, and that's a good place to base yourself and then use public transport. But rooms very, very thin on the ground, unlike, and let's go back to Liverpool, actually, what we're seeing there is, you know that we had lots of stories about hotel rooms going through the roof and everything. They are coming back onto the market, and you might be able to grab something there, possibly, sadly, because of all those train cancellations and people not being able to reach Merseyside.
Yes, of course. Simon, very quickly, I have to ask you, just touched on the Elizabeth line there. What did you make of the Prince and Princess of Wales on the Elizabeth line yesterday? They paid a surprise visit.
Oh, well, look, it was absolutely lovely to see the royal family on public transport. And I know we're not like the Netherlands, we're not like Sweden, where they're all, you know, you can turn around on the bus and, oh, look, there's the king. We're not like that, but even so, I think it democratises things, and yeah, cheers everybody up.
Yeah,
That's
wonderful
nice.
photos. Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you. They were wonderful.
Well, it's nice to see. I mean, I know, obviously, it's not quite like they just got on, is it? Like the rest of us do. But nevertheless, I think it was quite nice to see.
Yeah, somewhat planned, but it was very London.
Yeah.
The way people reacted. I mean, they were sat with TfL workers. That bit was definitely planned. But there were commuters in the background who just barely batted an eyelid.
Yeah, very nice.
Brilliant.
Take it in their stride.
Oh, yeah, as they always do.
Saw the Prince of Wales today on the tube. Yeah, pull the other one. Anyway, look, we're going to be in Stoke as the local election results continue to come in. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dems & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 6:26. You are watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and Ellie. We are live from Buckingham Palace with just one day to go.
Oh yes, one day, 24 hours or so, and then we'll be waiting to see the procession from here as it heads to Westminster Abbey. Get me words out. But I tell you what, I wonder if people are going to be more focused on the journey there or the journey back, because there's something about seeing the gold coach, isn't it, which is only being used on the way back. But that in itself is just a bit of history, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited. Are you feeling excited this morning?
Oh yeah.
It really feels close now. I mean, we've been here all week, but it feels different this morning. It's very, very close.
I know there are some people who are a bit grouchy about it all, but I just sort of think this is, we learnt about the coronation at school. You see all the old footage and all the rest of it, and here we are living this moment. We're actually those people that you got to see cheering back in 1953 and all that we are those people now. And I think that's really nice.
Yeah, it really, really is. And for many people, I mean, this is going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event. This is the coronation they're going to see. And from what we've been hearing this week, it is going to be absolutely incredible. Such an important part of our history. I was reading about Westminster Abbey. Would you call it the Deacon?
I don't know if this got a deacon or not.
One of the people that are proceeding over the
canon.
Yeah, it might be the canon. And he said that he had goosebumps during the rehearsals, and he was like, if I can be awestruck, then imagine how we're going to feel, because he presides over these things all the time. Well, not coronations, but big fancy things. Yeah. So we're going to be impressed. I think.
Good. Well,
let us know
be impressed.
What you're thinking at home. What are your plans? Are you excited? How are you feeling today? Let us know. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
Well, of course, the other big story today, apart from the look ahead to that, was the look back to what happened yesterday. Is a lot of council votes were cast yesterday in England, at least. So we're getting some results through. A lot of them are going to take the full day, so we're not going to get the full picture till later on tonight. But in the meantime, let's head to Stoke. Will Hollis is there for us this morning, and actually Stoke's quite a big story, isn't it, this morning, Will?
Yes, good morning. We're live from Fenton Manor, which is a huge leisure complex here in the city of Stoke. It's where they've been running the count from tonight for Stoke City Council, and the big news that's coming out of this city today is that Labour has gained a majority council. So they've won 29 seats here. They needed 23 seats to gain that majority on the 44-seat council. This is big news because this is a part of the country that's referred to as the Red Wall. Now, Stoke locally, Labour haven't been able to win an election here since 2011. In 2015 and 2019, the Conservatives held a minority government backed up by the independents. So locally here for Labour, it shows that they can win again in Stoke. When I was just setting up my camera here about half an hour ago, lots of people were coming out with red rosettes, cheering, saying good evening, good night to each other because they're going back to bed. A few moments actually ago, some young teenagers started to go into the leisure complex because they're now going in to do their athletics and all of that kind of stuff. So it shows that it is really becoming the morning now. The other reason that Stoke is important is because for the constituencies, for the Parliament elections, which we're expecting to see another one of in 2024, here all three Parliament seats are held by Conservatives. Now, why that's important is because in 2017 and 2019, two of those seats went from permanent Labour seats over to the Conservatives. So for Keir Starmer's Labour Party nationally, Stoke, because it is such a big red wall seat with its history in the potteries as well as the collieries, working class neighbourhoods, it shows that at least today on a local level that it is a really good indicator going into the next election that Labour can once again win in these red wall seats.
Okay, Will, thanks very much indeed.
Okay, stay with us. We're going to be discussing the Prince and Princess of Wales's visit to Soho. There we go, got there in the end. As they prepare for tomorrow's coronation, Liz Kershaw and Benjamin Butterworth will be taking us through the papers. That's next. This is GB News.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Dubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, The People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
It is 6:33 morning to you. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Ellie.
Let's have a look at today's papers for you now. We'll start in the Mirror, where the Prince and Princess of Wales are pictured having a pre-coronation drink at the Dog and Duck in Soho. They're just like us.
Yeah.
The royal couple took the Elizabeth line down to the pub yesterday, where they sipped pints at the bar and chatted to locals about coronation rehearsals.
Did the princess have a pint?
No, now, I was just about to raise this. She was handed a pint. I did not see her drink it, so very, yeah.
No,
it's
no.
not quite in keeping with her image.
I'd be quite impressed if I saw her with a pint, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Mind you, I'm always quite impressed to see the King laughing It's a great shot on the front of the Daily Telegraph. There he is. He's laughing with the king of the Ashanti Kingdom, which I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of. Lord Lloyd Webber has thrown his comments in. He hopes the coronation anthem, composed for the king, is sung at churches across the country. I haven't heard that either.
Yeah, he's written an anthem, a coronation anthem especially, and the king has listened to it and said he's moved by it and he really likes it. So that's one to look forward to tomorrow. It's going to be played for the first time.
Very good.
Yeah. The Mail shows campers who have bagged the best spots on the Mall ahead of the coronation, and some of them have been here for 8 days. Can you believe that?
What do you do about going to the loo?
Well, these are the questions I was asking when I was here this week.
It's the
One of them also has a hotel room booked, would you believe?
Oh.
So they can nip back and use the shower.
They must have some money to spend.
Yeah, that's
I'll
what I
say that.
said. Other than that, it's a wet wipe job, I think.
Oh, dear. Lovely. Well, there's a thought for you. Let's talk to broadcaster Liz Kershaw and journalist Benjamin Butterworth, who are back in the studio for us this morning. Good to see... Oh, Benjamin.
Oh, and Liz got tiara on. Well, thank you for
Well, there you
making
go. What
so
a
much
pair.
effort. The Prince and Princess of the papers.
Yes, well, the Prince and Princess of Wales, Liz, have been to the pub. That's in the Metro this morning. I'm surprised you didn't see them there, because you like a crafty pint, don't you?
Not on a work night, a school night, no. I went round central London yesterday, and outside the pubs was just heaving, you know, people on the pavements and having a good time, packed. I did see Princess Anne flash past in a Bentley 4x4 convertible with all... The police motorcycles were so exciting because what a great job. You get paid to go at, like, 70 miles an hour down the Mall in a straight line. And my friend Jeff spotted Prince William. But it was heaving and there was a great atmosphere. Camilla was at a pub in Windsor as well yesterday. It seems quite the thing, the common touch with the people. But William couldn't pull a pint because there's a technique, especially to pull in really heavy, frothy beer, and you've got to get the glass tipped and you've got to do it slowly, slowly, slowly. Had a few goes. And then in the end, it was a special coronation brew. And he went for a pint of cider instead. And allegedly so did Kate. But as you said, there's no photos of them actually knocking it back. But it was a great atmosphere in Soho. I don't know where they would have got on the Elizabeth line, though. So just, you know, they could have probably gone 2 stops. But it is a fantastic service.
Yeah, and Benjamin, I mean, London has just looked fantastic this week in the lead up to the coronation, hasn't it? What did you make of the Prince and Princess of Wales visit yesterday?
Well, I mean, I loved it. You know, I'll confess I've spent 1 or 2 afternoons and evenings in Soho myself. And so it was pretty great to see them there. But, you know, my office is opposite Kensington Palace. And I have to say, in the last couple of days, it's been absolutely heaving with people. The number of tourists, the number of people going around Kensington Park Gardens and looking around that palace and the places around it. You know, it makes me so excited. And I remember when I moved to London at 18 years old, and the first royal occasion I saw was the wedding of Kate and Wills. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit sad, but I loved it. I left my halls of residence at about 3 a.m. in the morning and walked to Parliament Square with a little Union Jack flag with their faces in the middle and waved that as they got married. So, you know, I really love all this stuff. And I think that, you know, sometimes people say to me, because I'm on the left, and they say, why are you a royalist? Why do you enjoy it so much? And I think it's because, unlike anything America could have on these occasions, or most other countries, everybody comes together. There's a unity, whatever their politics, whatever their age, people come out and they wave a flag and they enjoy that thing we have in common. And honestly, it just fills me with joy.
There were so many Americans yesterday.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with a bit of patriotism. Benjamin, let's have a look at the eye, should we?
Yeah.
To something less joyous, but it's looking at massive profits made by Shell.
Yeah, that's right. So Shell, the energy provider, has made about £32 billion in profit. In fact, it's made another £7.7 billion in the last quarter. Now, this is going to horrify a lot of people, considering the percentage of their income that they're spending on energy bills at the moment. But what's also amazing, and this is a report that the Eye newspaper has been doing for a while, is that while they made £7.7 billion more profit, they put in 4,000 prepayment meters. Now, those are the meters that basically, when someone gets cut off, this means that you have to put the money in before you can have any energy. It means that you have to pay extra charges, and that makes it far harder for people to be able to afford their energy. Basically, it's a tax on those with the least money trying to afford the basics. And I think it raises serious questions that, you know, when you've got a company making tens of billions of pounds in profit, why they're continuing to do these on the poorest. And Grant Shapps, the government minister involved in this, has said that it needs to stop because it is leaving people in the freezing cold.
Liz, what do you make of this?
Well, I saw a couple of days ago the Brent crude oil price is only about $80 a barrel, and it's been way over 100, but it's down to sort of normal levels now. And I just wonder, and gas prices have gone down as well. I just wonder why we're still paying, you know, around $1.50 a litre for fuel at the pumps when the raw material isn't as expensive as it was, and I can't see any justification for that. And also domestic electricity and gas prices, they're just unbelievable. I had a £1,000 gas bill for 3 months for an empty house. You know, it's just that the boiler's on ticking over in the winter in case it freezes. But I just found that, because of course you don't get the Rishi Sunak 66 quid a month on the gas, it's put on your electric, so what a shocker. But at the same time, prices are coming down. But food prices as well. I mean, I just think people are being exploited. In fact, we'll talk about this later, but Rishi Sunak is going to talk to the major supermarkets to say, are these prices really reasonable, or are you exploiting the situation? Because people say, oh, I've just had to pay, you know, such and such price for this. Oh, well, you know, it's the cost of living crisis, isn't it? And people think, I just have to accept it. I went into a shop the other day, and for a bag of logs like this, it was, guess how much? Anybody?
No. Tell us.
$34.95. $34.95 to have a bag of dry kiln logs. I mean, he said, I'm sorry, they've gone up. They've gone up 3 times since Christmas, and they were about £12. So I just said, right, no, thanks.
I mean, I would just say on the energy prices, Liz asked a very good question of why are they so expensive when the wholesale prices have come down, and absolutely right that there's a massive lag. There's going to be a new price on the 26th of May, and that will be it's expected to be 19% lower than the price cap, which is currently £2,500, and it's going to remain that way for the rest of the year, according to the forecast. So people's energy prices are going to come down, but that's still dramatically more than it was 12 months prior. So there is some hope on the horizon for that.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's because they buy all in advance, so they get locked into these prices, but that doesn't help us out at all. Liz, in the Mail, we've got more strikes on the way. Another 6 months, perhaps.
Yeah, the government did a deal with Network Rail, so that was kind of a beacon of hope, and everybody thought, oh, you know, the railways have been sorted out, but now the major rail workers' unions, the people actually on the trains, have said, no, we're going to keep on demanding, so there could be strikes until Christmas. There's been billions of pounds lost, it's claiming, to the economy, to businesses, because people just can't get where they want to be. I went down to Milton Keynes Station the other day with a prepaid ticket to North Wales and got there 15 minutes before the departure of my train, and then at the last minute they said the train to blah blah has now been cancelled, and they wouldn't let me transfer it to a different rail operator, which I think is ridiculous, because I thought the taxpayer owned them all more or less now, and they're all in the same unions, and yet when it comes to using it, so I had to buy a more expensive ticket to go on Avanti trains. Otherwise I would have missed my 2 other connections, which were for fixed trains, so the whole thing would have collapsed. But on the other hand, there's a report in the Times business section today that more and more tickets are being sold by the train line. The online ticket buying platform is reporting record sales, not quite up to pre-lockdowns, but it appears people are trying to use the trains.
But Benjamin, more disruption till Christmas. How are you reacting to that?
I mean, look, I think our railways are quite fundamentally broken. When I often go back to Manchester, where I'm originally from, and I speak to the people on Avanti West Coast, which has been one of the most disrupted lines, both due to strikes and also due to that company not being terribly well run. And the staff on there talk about how they're not properly paid, how their work rights and situation is all over the place, how it's got much worse than it used to be. And so I have a lot of sympathy with the situation they're facing. But then at the other end of it, me as a paying commuter, when it costs £90 to get back to Manchester, to go to and from Manchester, which is not a particularly long way, it's about 2 hours, those are extortionate prices. And I think the whole thing needs to be restructured because people say that they don't want to nationalise the railways. Our railways have been nationalised by, well, some of them are literally nationalised, but the rest of them are owned by other countries. France and Germany and Italy own much of our railways, and they're, coining in the profits. So I think something needs to be seriously done because people can't afford to get around. And it's not like this in other countries with similar economies and similar wage levels. And I think, whether these strikes should happen or not, there's a far more fundamental problem.
How is it you can go?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what, Liz. Let's go to something which is going to make us smile a little bit because that's all thoroughly depressing. So let's talk about, because I don't think your hat or your tiara would count as royal memorabilia, but there is someone in Brazil, Benjamin, in the metro, who's got 2,000 pieces of royal memorabilia.
That's right, and I'm looking for a husband, and it sounds like he's in the metro. His name is Savio Vilai, if I pronounce that right. And this man is from Brazil, and he lives here. He's a lawyer in Britain, and he's got 2,000 items. He's got biscuit tins, tea tins, books, mugs, everything you can possibly think of. And he says that he just loves it, and he even got a framed copy of the Metro newspaper after Her Majesty the Queen died, and put that on his wall. And so, but what I love about this story in a way is that this guy isn't British, he didn't grow up in Britain at least. And yet he has such a love for our royal family and for some of the traditions of this country. And, you're outside Buckingham Palace, so I suspect when you've been going about your business, you'll notice this. The whole world, not just Commonwealth countries, has an adoration and a fascination with these moments. And it's something that I always love. I used to have a Brazilian flatmate who had a tattoo of the Queen. People love this. And I think it's something that really helps Britain around the world. And I love seeing people from, all these different countries come and care about our coronation and our sort of crazy, wacky, but brilliant ways.
And it touches upon what you said earlier, Benjamin, which is that this is the thing that unites us all. I mean, people all around the world want to be involved in our coronation. It's something that they don't have.
Exactly. And you know what? There's been all sorts of pessimistic headlines, easy headlines in the last couple of weeks of do people care about the coronation? And frankly, I think if you roll the clock back a week, a lot of people weren't thinking about it. But I think we're in full hysteria now. I also think back to remember when they had London 2012 Olympics and everyone would say, oh, no one really cares. But as soon as it came round, we really enjoy it. And I think that's what you're seeing with this coronation weekend.
Well, there's been a rush of applications to councils in the last couple of days to hold street parties. So people are starting to get really involved, I think. But the atmosphere, the people on the pavement yesterday up the Mall was fantastic. But I tweeted some pictures and get the usual low-life abusive comments like Tory scum, etc. There's some nasty people out there, but it's really good for the economy. I mean, Simon was talking earlier about the hotels, and a guy I know is American who's over, especially for the coronation. He said they were asking £800 a night, which is a bit extortionate, but if they get it, it's a boom to the economy.
It's a bit cheeky. Well, it is a boom for the economy. it's all right if you can afford to pay the bill, I guess. Look, we're going to leave it there. Liz, Benjamin, thank you both very much indeed. We'll catch you later.
Now, it's a busy day in Westminster as coronation preparations are in their final touches stage, and politicians from all parties have their eyes on the still incoming local election results.
Yes, they're going to be more concerned about that than the coronation at the minute, I should imagine. Let's talk to Conservative Party Chairman Greg Hands, who's in Westminster. Very good to see you, Mr. Hands, this morning. I mean, look, can the Conservatives look at what we know so far from last night as anything other than disappointing?
Well, it is disappointing. We've had a quarter or so of the results come in. We always said it would be a difficult night for the party. The independent projections were all that we're going to lose 1,000 seats. It's still early days so far, but if I might say it's not been that great a result for Labour in some areas. We've actually gained seats in Peterborough, in Sandwell, in Bassetlaw, other areas that Labour need to win at the next election.
I mean, it has been so far. It does look like a bruising night for the Tories, though, it must be said. I mean, Rishi Sunak has conceded it would be a hard night. Have you spoken to him yet this morning? Do you have a sense of how the Prime Minister is feeling?
I haven't spoken to the Prime Minister yet this morning, but it was always clear that we were going to have a difficult night. The Conservative Party had a difficult year last year. The whole country had a difficult year. But Rishi Sunak and the whole team are getting on with the job, delivering on the 5 priorities of halving inflation, restoring growth, cutting the debt, reducing hospital waiting lists and stopping the boats.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot on his plate with all of this. You've got to ask, though, I mean, what would constitute a reasonable result for you? Say we've got 75% still to come in. There's talk of losing 1,000 seats. I mean, if it was 750, what would you make of that? 500?
Well, look, we'll have to wait and see as the day rolls on. What I would say is that Labour are not making gains across the board that they would need to be making. In places like Peterborough, in Sandwell, in Bassetlaw, these are all seats that Jeremy Corbyn won in 2017 that are actually, the Conservatives are gaining seats there overnight. So it's not a uniformly good picture for Labour. And that is because Sir Keir Starmer is not cutting through. I've been up and down the country over the last month. I've been to 33 council areas. I've yet to have a conversation with a voter that isn't improved by mentioning Rishi Sunak, and I've yet to have a conversation with a voter where they're enthusiastic for Sir Keir Starmer and Labour. So, I think there are obviously lessons for us. As I say, overall it's a disappointment.
But they have taken places like Stoke. Now that, I mean, Brexit capital, as it's known. I mean, that's significant, actually, isn't it?
Well, that is a low bar for Labour. Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 won 2 of the 3 Stoke parliamentary constituencies. Places that Labour do need to win, as I mentioned, Peterborough, Sandwell, Bassetlaw are actually seeing some Conservative gains overnight. So it's not a uniformly good picture for Labour, and in some places Sir Keir Starmer is performing worse than Jeremy Corbyn.
Turnout was low, it seems. I mean, 40% generally for local elections. It looks closer to 30% from what we've seen so far. Why have people stayed away, do you think?
Well, look, I think it's a bit of a classic sort of mid-term phenomenon. I think, to be frank, quite a few Conservative voters or people who usually vote Conservative didn't come and vote yesterday, and I understand some of their frustration. I met quite a few Conservative voters in the last month who regrettably wouldn't be voting or weren't going to be voting yesterday. So we've got a lot of work to do to win those people back. That is why Rishi Sunak, the whole government, are getting on delivering against those 5 key priorities of halving inflation, restoring growth, cutting the debt, reducing hospital waiting lists and stopping the boats.
Look, I know it's extremely difficult to extrapolate and dangerous in a way to extrapolate to a general election. But Sir John Curtis describing this, saying he thinks this is about a 4% swing from the Tories to Labour, which works out about 8 percentage points in terms of the lead they may have. That's hung Parliament territory, isn't it? Labour could team up with the Lib Dems, even though they say they won't at the minute. But the Tories are left on their own.
Well, look, it is difficult to extrapolate from local elections. But one thing I would say is that in 2019 we did quite badly in some areas, yet we still won a good majority in 2019. So a lot can change, a lot can happen quite quickly. As I say, there's Labour are not breaking through in areas that they need to break through. I mentioned Conservative gains in Peterborough, in Sandwell, Bassett Law. We've gained seats in Harlow, which was a Labour seat until 2010. So it's a mixed picture for Labour. Obviously disappointing night for us. We've lost quite a few really good, high-quality councillors and really well-run councils. But nonetheless, I don't think this is a good picture for Sir Keir Starmer overall.
Greg Hands, we haven't got long with you, but just under 24 hours, just over 24 hours to go until the coronation tomorrow. Your reflections on the incredible event that we're going to see tomorrow?
Well, I just think it's it's an amazing moment for the country. We're all going to be experiencing something that literally we haven't had for 70 years. So I'm really, really excited about it. I'm really excited to see everybody getting ready for it. As I say, I've been up and down the country the last month and seeing the number of streets, homes, town centres already decked out, ready for the coronation. It's clearly going to be a fantastic time for the whole country to unite behind our new king.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg Hands, really good to see you this morning. Thank you. We've got all the very latest on the coronation and the local election results heading your way very shortly. First, though, here's your weather.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit drab out there for many of us this morning. It will get brighter through the day, but watch out for some heavy showers later on. Could even be a few thunderstorms rumbling away. One area of low pressure has kind of developed another area of low pressure across the UK, and bands of showery rain have been tracking northwards through the night, making for a fairly grey start. Some places waking up to a bit of brightness, and generally across England and Wales, skies will brighten through the day. But outbreaks of rain this morning continuing for Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland. Probably the longest spells of sunshine over the far northwest of Scotland. The far northeast, blustery and fairly cloudy, and then in the south the skies brighten. Heavy, thundery showers will break out this afternoon. Could be some torrential downpours, potential for disruptions. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. But it won't rain all day between the downpours. Temperatures with a bit of brightness getting into the high teens. Still some heavy showers around this evening, so again a lot of spray, surface water on the roads if you're heading away for the long weekends. The showers do fade though, most of us becoming dry through the night. But look at this, more wet weather then spiralling into the southwest, and that is going to spread northwards during Saturday. Ahead of it, I'm turning a little chilly, perhaps with some clearer spells, but generally a dry start again for most on Saturday, but it won't last. Some question marks about the exact timing of that rain into the London area for the coronation, but it looks like being fairly grey and damp in London, along with much of the Midlands, Wales, and that rain will spread towards northern England later in the day. Much of the far north of England, a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland will be dry for most of tomorrow, and it may brighten up in the southwest as well, although the potential for more showers to come. It is looking fairly mixed through the long weekend. Sunday sees more heavy showers in the east, a bit drier perhaps in the west, and then we're looking at Monday seeing further rain coming in across the country.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of May. Today, it's the final countdown to the coronation. King Charles will hold a special celebration tonight as he prepares to fulfil his destiny tomorrow. The votes are in, going from bad to worse for the Conservatives as Labour gain seats in local elections across the country. We've got our reporters live around the UK.
Yes, I'm in Windsor and Maidenhead, where it is expected that the Liberal Democrats will take control of this true blue council.
And it's wet weather here in Stoke-on-Trent, but that's not dampening the spirits of the local Labour Party, who've just won a 29-seat majority on Stoke City Council.
What could this mean for Rishi Sunak, though? One Tory councillor who lost his seat has blamed Westminster as a key factor in his party's performance. And it's never too late to relive your dreams. We meet the 90-year-old former dancer who was invited to the Queen's coronation all the way back in 1953.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Coronation Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
You know, I find that music really uplifting.
Me too. I find it quite moving.
Yeah, I do. Oh, we're getting soppy in our old age.
Oh, there's a lot more of that to come.
There is Robert. Good morning to you, Robert. He says, I'm looking forward to the coronation. I was born in August 1953, so I've been waiting all my life to see one. This is history in the making.
Oh, Keith wants to compliment your tie.
Oh, thank you.
It's knotted perfectly as usual, he says. And by the way...
Double Windsor.
Double Windsor.
That's what it is. A double Windsor always gives you a really nice knot.
Very fitting, I think, for this weekend.
Well, yeah.
And he says, by the way, GB News has the best coronation coverage by far. The Coronation Station, it was called this week, which I quite liked.
A slightly odd one from Danielle. Good morning to you, Danielle, who says, everyone's so wrapped up in the excitement. No one has stopped to question, what if King Charles dies before Camilla, then Camilla takes over as solo head of state? No, that isn't how it works. That's not the case. It would be William would then take over. Whatever happens, it's not how it. It's not how it. It's a bit like the Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, when the King died. Then obviously the Queen Elizabeth II became Queen, and she became the Queen Mother. So it would be the same thing. Only I don't know what Camilla would become in that sense, but no, she wouldn't take over. No, it's not how it works.
The King's mother-in-law.
Yes.
Would it be?
Well, sort of, yeah.
Kind of, or stepmother. Yeah.
Oh, yes, stepmother.
Yes, stepmother, yes. Karen's been in touch. Good morning to you, Karen, who says, we've decided last minute to head into London tomorrow to watch the coronation, hoping to get a spot close to our son, who's in the Royal Marines, and he will be lining the route. Will you please wish all of those taking part lots of luck? We are all so proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you what, there's so many taking part, and they are all trained to the absolute... I mean, they'll be exhausted, actually, with all the overnight rehearsals and everything else they've been doing, but they will be spot on. You must be extremely proud of your son.
Yes,
how wonderful to see him.
Yeah, best of luck to everybody who's involved, and especially to those who are keeping us safe and those who are part of the procession as well. I was actually speaking to people who are in the tents down on the Mall, and they've been watching the overnight rehearsals, and they say we are in for a treat.
Lovely.
It looks magnificent. So we've got lots and lots to look forward to. Do keep your thoughts coming in on the coronation and on the local elections as well. Two very, very big stories going on today that we will, of course, bring you up to speed with on GB News.
Well, yes, in fact, let's get up to date right now, actually, on those local elections, because, well, we're not going to know exactly the full picture for some time. The results still coming in.
Yes, but the Conservative results are looking a little bit bleak so far, and the spoils are being divided between Labour and the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah, but with only 64 councils counting votes overnight, as I say, we're not going to know the full extent of the picture until later on today. But we can get an analysis, can't we, of what's happening so far?
Yes, our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, joins us now. Good morning to you, Tom. So as we say, so far only 64 councils have declared. What are you thinking of what we've seen so far?
Well, we're seeing the same picture that we saw around an hour ago. When we last spoke, the Tories had lost around 100 councillors. Now they have lost around 200 councillors. So we are seeing this continuation of a depletion of the Conservative vote. And in most areas, with some exceptions, in most areas the Conservatives are really going backwards. Probably on course to lose around 1,000 councillors across the course of the day. And of course, at 6 a.m, 2 councils had been won by the Labour Party, both Stoke-on-Trent and Plymouth. In the last hour, a further council has been won by the Labour Party, Medway Council. Hugely symbolic. This area of, I suppose, Kent was a big, big win for Blair back in 1997. Traditionally fairly Tory, this area. The Labour Party has made a big gain there. And that has consequences for Westminster. All of these seats, of course, have consequences for Westminster. In Stoke-on-Trent, there are 3 MPs, all of them Tory. With these sort of swings, they would be looking at losing their seats. Similarly, down in Plymouth, we know that, for example, there's the Veterans Minister, Johnny Mercer. That's where he has his seat. That could be at risk. And in Medway, of course, Rochester and Strood is one of those seats which Kelly Tolhurst, the Schools Minister, holds as things stand. She may well be looking at losing that seat were these swings to be replicated in a general election. One thing to note that is of particular interest in all of these areas, the Labour Party seems to be doing better than average in Leave voting areas, which is fairly remarkable, given that the Labour Party is led, of course, by one of the architects of Labour's former second referendum campaign. It looks particularly of note that in the areas with high Brexit votes, the Labour Party is making their biggest gains. But that's no comfort for the Conservative Party in areas that voted Remain. The Conservatives are still going backwards in those areas as well, but are more likely to be losing their votes and seats to, for example, the Lib Dems and the Greens.
Yeah, no, very interesting that. Well, let's head to one of the key areas, Maidenhead. Our political reporter, Catherine Forster, is there for us. It was a Conservative-controlled council, I understand, Catherine. What's the latest you're getting there?
Well, they're still counting, but 34 of the 41 results here are now in, and it was narrowly controlled by the Conservatives. They had 22 of the 41 seats, but as things stand, the Lib Dems have now got 20 of those seats, and the Conservatives only 3, 6 independent, with 7 still to be declared. So obviously it looks very much like the Lib Dems are going to take this from the Conservatives. Not announced yet, but obviously the Lib Dems are completely jubilant. Ed Davey has been saying this is a groundbreaking night. It's exceeding all their expectations. And of course, this is the royal borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. Former Prime Minister Theresa May is one of the MPs here. For this type of swing to the Lib Dems, I think is really quite significant and will really worry Conservatives around the country.
Well, do we understand why Labour doesn't perform better there?
Labour have never really featured in this area. It's true blue generally, with now a lot of yellow creeping in. You know, it's part of the so-called blue wall of what were previously safe Conservative seats in the southeast of England, sort of in a ring around London. Now, many of the voters here very unhappy with, as Rishi Sunak said, the box set of events over the last year. 3 prime ministers, multiple chancellors, the mini budget, the parties, etc., etc. And a lot of that disaffection is now going to the Lib Dems. And also, of course, Lib Dems tend to do well in local elections. They tend to perform strongly on a local level, and that's what we're seeing here. So worries for the Conservatives, both losing to Labour in many areas and also in some of these previous Tory heartlands now losing to the Liberal Democrats.
OK, Catherine Forster, thank you so much for bringing us that update. It will be really interesting to see if that's something that we see nationally, you know, true blue seats turning yellow or indeed red.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. These areas where Labour don't get a look in there. What? I mean, why not? But why then would people switch to the Lib Dems? I mean, it's fascinating stuff. Is it a sign of just people being fed up and wanting a change? Is it anything to do with local policies? Is it all based on national policies? So let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. Let's get the reaction of former Special Advisor to Nadhim Zahawi, Mark Lehane, who joins us now. I mean, look, Mark, it looks like, I mean, it's disappointing so far for the Tories. It looks like it could end up being pretty bruising.
Yeah, I mean, I think a simple summary is it's a good night for Labour so far, and it's really bad news for the Conservatives. The only thing going through my head is, and the question I'm asking myself is, how much worse could it have been if there hadn't been a change in Prime Minister before? And also, could things get better from now as things settle down? Politics has been reassuringly quite boring the last 6 months. I think we've all breathed a sigh of relief because of that. Has that had a chance to feed through into how people are feeling? My guess is not. People are still feeling that there's not enough money in their pockets, and they want to give the government a kick as a result of that.
I mean, Rishi Sunak was speaking ahead of these local elections, and he admitted that it was going to be a tough night for the Tories, but he said he was getting away from the box set drama that we've seen at number 10. He's moving away from Boris Johnson's government and the drama of Liz Truss's very short time at number 10 as well. But this is a very big ship to turn around, isn't it? And people will be asking now, is there enough time to turn it around before a general election?
But you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the polling lead for Labour has halved since Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister. So he has made good strides there. He has steadied that ship, and they have focused on starting to get stuff done. And he's announced those 5 promises, those 5 pledges to try and sort out before the year is out. But it's going to take time for that to feed through into people's personal experiences. I'm sat here in Bedford talking to you. All of the Labour Party leaflets in Bedford were focusing on national issues, even though these are local elections. And right now, lots of people are still really cross at the government for how things have gone. But there's at least a year to go until the general election. It could be as long as 18 months, maybe 20 months. So if the economy turns around, if people start to see more money going into their pay packets, if they start to see the cost of things start to come down again, it might turn in the government's favour, but there's a long way to go.
What do we make of the turnout, Mark? I mean, it's looking, well, maybe nudging 30%, but it's pretty poor.
Yes, and local election turnouts, sadly, are typically quite low. This looks like it's in line or a little bit down on last time. Again, possibly a sign that people are just a bit disaffected and a bit grumpy at politicians, and who can blame them, given what we've been through. It will be interesting to see what, if any, impact voter ID has had on people turning out to vote, whether lots of people have gone to vote, forgotten to have the ID on them, and then they've gone home and not come back again. But we'll have to wait and see what the numbers look like by the end of the counts to know if that's had an impact.
Mark, you're the former special advisor to Nadeem Zahawi. What was your sense whilst you were working very closely with him of the mood within the party? And have you spoken to anybody within the party this morning about how they're feeling today?
So I think when you are, whether you're in government or whether you're in an opposition party, you always try to be optimistic. You don't go into politics unless you're an optimist in some way, because you always hope you can pull things out of the bag. And there are still quite a lot of things that the government can do to make people's lives better that hopefully will then encourage them to vote for them. Like I said, get inflation down, get more money into people's pockets, get on top of immigration, which you know is an issue for a lot of people, and so on and so on. But it is going to take a lot of time and effort and focus for those things to make a difference, and we probably haven't had enough time to do that. So in CCHQ, in Conservative head office right now, people will be feeling quite bruised. They'll also be feeling exhausted because they'll be up all night, and they'll want to take their time to analyse the results that have come through to see if there are trends beyond it being a bad night for them. I think everybody will still be hoping, though, whether they're Conservative, Labour or Lib Dem, that the plans they've got between now and the general election will work. So for the Liberal Democrats, they'll be wanting to break through in the blue wall. Labour will wanting to be making big wins back in those so-called red wall seats and elsewhere, and the Conservatives will be hoping that getting a government focused on delivery will hold as many of those seats as possible.
OK, Mark, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
The danger with this is that you make too many assumptions about moving forward, and we say it every single time. Local elections and general elections are not the same thing, and they work in different ways. People have different priorities, but you can't help but extrapolate and say, well, what if this swing was translated to a general election? What would it mean? I mean, it's a useful thing to do, but it doesn't mean any of it's actually going to happen.
And can you say what you're talking about in the taxi here? Because that was very interesting. You were talking about extent. You're saying it's not just about results, it's about the extent.
Oh, the extent of losses. So it's things like, you know, they're looking at the Tories having like a 1,000-seat loss, which is sort of what's expected, which is pretty bad. If they only lost 750, well, it's so-so. If they only lost 500, it would actually be a pretty good night for the Conservative Party, despite the fact they'd lost those. And it works in reverse for the Labour Party. If they only gained 300 or 400 seats, well, then it's actually not a great night for them. But it looks like it's going to be a good night for Labour, good night for the Lib Dems, bad night for the Tories.
Yeah. But of course, those results are going to keep coming in throughout the day. We'll bring that to you on GB News. Keep your thoughts and views coming in on local election or on the coronation or anything you want to talk about this morning. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Now, should we cheer ourselves up a little bit?
Please.
Because it is Coronation weekend. It is here. And we've been talking to a 90-year-old former dancer and model who was actually invited to Queen Elizabeth's coronation 70 years ago. And she said she will never forget what was a magnificent spectacle.
Well, our home editor, Mark White, has been to meet Joyce Day, who says she's also very excited about King Charles's coronation and believes he will make a great king.
I didn't know how incredibly important it was. I mean, we couldn't imagine a gathering such as they were having. This is the actual invitation that I got. Very excited and really should be framed. In fact, I am now going to frame it.
Joyce Day was just 21 and training with the Royal Academy of Dance when her name was pulled out of a hat to attend Queen Elizabeth's coronation. An incredible privilege and an occasion the 90-year-old still remembers vividly.
To see the Queen and the processions and everything was very exciting. Beautiful too. And the music in the Abbey was sensational.
It was, Joyce remembers, a freezing cold day. Luckily, the excitement of the occasion overrode the chills.
Well, first of all, we had to be there between 6 and 7 in the morning. And we had to have dresses on of light material, and although it was freezing cold, we could have a light stole around our shoulders.
Joyce, who went on to have a successful career in modelling, remembers the almost comically absurd spectacle of being dropped off at the front of Westminster Abbey by her boyfriend in an old converted Morris.
And he was still then. He went back round Trafalgar Square and he got a great cheer in his car, because most of them were very grand cars. But he said it was a sort of cheer that the dustman gets when he goes around. So maybe a few whistles too.
After a long wait, the ceremony was worth it. It was, she says, nothing short of incredible.
It was very impressive. And we were high up in the Abbey. It was a magnificent view, very high up, and it was magnificent, yes. I mean, I've seen things that the French do. They do quite well, but I think we're the best at that. I'm watching with interest what happens to Charles. I think this is going to be refreshing.
As you watch the coronation on the television this time, no doubt your memory will take you back to that event back in 53.
Yes, I think it's going to be amazing for me to see it again. And I shall take it in more this time, looking on, than I really felt doing it when I was so young and so long ago. It's a big thing to organise, and I wish them well. It's going to be very exciting.
How is she 90 years old?
She looks amazing. I mean, she absolutely beautiful.
Frankly, Joyce, well, I mean, that's just.
And whatever
you're taking, I'll have one.
We'll have some of that, please.
Karen's been in touch. Morning to you, Karen. She says, my father, Sidney Lowe from Bolton, is 94 and he will be celebrating tomorrow his third coronation. Born in 1929, he remembers the coronation of King George VI when he was 6. He got a tin of coronation biscuits and a half-day holiday from school. He was 24 for the coronation of the Queen, was in the Merchant Navy and celebrated the event away at sea. He loves watching GB News on his iPad. So good on you for getting the technology going, Sydney. And he's commented what fantastic coverage of the event all the presenters are doing. Well, Sydney, sir, that is a great honour. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you enjoy your third coronation tomorrow.
Yeah. What a privilege to see 3 coronations as well. It's absolutely incredible. Part of history. Amazing. Maxine's been in touch saying, morning, Stephen and Ellie. Really enjoying your GB News Coronation Breakfast programme, and I'm enjoying watching you both. Great teamwork together. Yeah. Congratulations, well done. Well, hopefully there's lots more to come, Maxine. Lots more to come this morning, and certainly with the rest of the weekend.
Yes.
We're here until Monday.
Yes, well, of course, when it comes to all things royal, of course, you need an expert to talk to. Can I hear horses, by the way?
You can.
Oh, there's some about... Keep an eye behind us. There's some about to come past. Very nice too. Anyway, it's all being prepared. The capital's all being prepared. Let's talk to Rafe Hedamanku, who is here. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, both. How are you?
We're really getting a sense of what we're going to get tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think one of the wonderful things for GB News being here all week is you're seeing every day the preparations increasing, but also the atmosphere getting greater and greater, and I think it's wonderful to actually chart that, so kudos to you. But I thought what a lovely package that was with Joyce there, you know, and just think, 1953 was a much more innocent and deferential age. Imagine being a 21-year-old member of the public in Westminster Abbey, seeing Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother in all their splendour, Winston Churchill in his garter robes, all the peers dressed up to the nines. Must have been overwhelming. Clearly made a lifelong memory, and many more lifelong memories are going to be made tomorrow, because as one of the modernisations of the coronation service, the King is prioritising members of the British public and the Commonwealth over politicians, over the House of Lords, over celebrities, and even over his own family and friends, many of whom he's had to apologise to. Sarah, Duchess of York, isn't coming. Lady Pamela Hicks, the first cousin of the King, daughter of Lady Mountbatten, the Queen's bridesmaid, one of the few people who could have been at both, is not attending. And instead you're going to have representatives from the King's charities and the Queen's charities, 400 members of the British Empire medal recipients, people who've done a lot for their local community, including 13-year-old Max Woolsey, the young boy who slept outside in a tent for 3 years, raised $750,000, got into the Guinness Book of Records, and will now be at the coronation service. And next door to the Abbey is the beautiful St Margaret's Church, Westminster, where there'll be 400 young people representing the charities who can see the procession and watch it on the big screen. Many opportunities for people from around the Commonwealth to actually come to the Abbey now and actually play part in this great service.
And isn't that a wonderful thing, actually? I mean, really wonderful, because the monarchy has to evolve, and we know it evolves quite slowly. But as I say, this is a significant step, actually, in bringing the people closer to the monarchy, or the monarchy closer to the people? I'm not sure which way around.
Well, I think the most important role the monarchy plays is not actually the constitutional stuff, it's the emotional connection, and it's the role that it plays in civic society. You know, it's the monarchy that actually champions unsexy issues and causes which wouldn't get celebrities and politicians involved or interested. Soup kitchens, you know, St John's Ambulance, Girl Guides, Meals on Wheels, those sorts of things are where the monarchy comes into their own. And it's through royal patronages, through the conferral of honours, through things like this, that they're actually able to thank and give publicity to people who make up the backbone of our civil society. The backbone of our civil society.
What do we know about King Charles and how he's feeling? Because there have been reports that he's feeling quite relaxed, really, ahead of the coronation. And we hear he's got a little event planned before he meets his destiny tomorrow.
That's right. So he's basically in London for the last few days. If you can see behind us, we have the Royal Standard flying above Buckingham Palace. Now, normally that means the King or Queen is in residence. Actually, he's just down the road at Clarence House. So in a break with tradition, the Royal Standard flies from two places, but he's happily ensconced in Clarence House. We're told he may be going to bed at 6 p.m. on the
Tonight.
Tonight it is. Tomorrow, isn't it? The
I'll be in bed before I am, Joss.
So to get it, sure he gets a good sleep. But of course, you know, he's had a long time to mentally prepare for this occasion. They've been very good. I mean, there have been mistakes in the past with coronations. They've been practicing so much inside the palace where they actually recreated Westminster Abbey in the ballroom. The Abbey itself has been closed for several days now, so they've been doing a lot of rehearsals there. So I think he's a skilled performer.
So you say he's been mentally prepared for a long time, but actually, I wonder if that almost makes it slightly more daunting, because he's known it's coming all his life, and now here it is. Now this is the moment. This is what he was born for.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but still, you know, for royals, I think they have a sang-froid and an ability. I mean, the thing is, you remember when he was in Australia, in 1988, I think it was, someone fired a gun, and he didn't. He was the only person who didn't flinch. You know, so I think he's made of strong metal.
Oh, I'll tell you what. I don't know if we can get a decent shot of these going past us now.
I mean, they look magnificent.
Morning.
Morning.
So these are the household cavalry, obviously, in their normal uniforms.
They're number twos.
Tomorrow. Well, you know more about this than anybody.
Yeah, number two, yeah. In the number twos there, and I don't know if one of them will get told off because for replying to us, but it's lovely to see, because actually, what an honour for them. Oh, here we go.
Oh, we're very busy here, aren't we?
Morning.
Oh, we're getting waves now.
We're getting
Lovely.
waves from these people who, and I can tell you from my experience with dealing with people in the military, that they'll be exhausted on the day because of all the rehearsals, and they'll have been through it 7, 8, 10 times before the big day.
And in the wee hours of the morning, let's not forget. So it plays havoc with their body clocks, I'm sure. But it will be one of the defining moments of their career, to be able to tell their grandchildren, I was there for the King's coronation, and I'm sure also for the Queen's funeral. I mean, we've had a remarkable series of events recently, from the Platinum Jubilee to the Queen's funeral to the coronation. Normally those are once-in-a-generation type of events, and they've all come within the space of a few months.
And what an honour for those who are involved, and as you say, they've been working so hard. Can we have a word about the music at the coronation? Because I was reading about... there's a lot
I'm absolutely distracted by the horses. I'm wondering, because I can't recognise any with all their gear on. Whether I know some of these or not, I don't know. But it's... it's wonderful to see.
If I can just interrupt briefly, today they just announced the Coronation Medal is going to be struck. So for all coronations and jubilees, a medal is always struck in Britain, but also Canada historically also did one too. and that will be going to anyone who participated in the coronation. So everyone we just saw will be getting the Coronation medal, as well as people who had 5 years service in the emergency services, in the police, in the armed forces. They'll also be entitled to the medal.
Oh, how wonderful.
That is
Brilliant.
lovely.
So, looking at the music, I was reading this morning that Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber has been tasked with composing a coronation anthem, which we're going to hear for the first time as part of that coronation ceremony tomorrow. King Charles reportedly really likes it, very moved by it. So that will be a highlight, I'm sure, for lots of people.
Well, yeah, I think it's the pinnacle of most musicians' career to be able to do something like this. And he now joins the ranks of Edward Elgar, you know, Vaughan Williams, Parry. I mean, for someone like Andrew Lloyd Webber, that really must be the ultimate accolade. And it's a very big responsibility. The King is far more passionate about classical music than any of his predecessors, perhaps going back to George IV. So for him, music is a very important occasion. There was some wondering whether he would include Buddhist chant and so forth, but it's actually a fully Christian service. But that also includes Greek chant, because of course his grandmother, Princess Alice, on his father's side, was a Greek nun, and there'll be an incorporation of that Greek Orthodox tradition into the service too. So music, as always at a coronation, plays an important part. And my favourite tune of all is Parry's "I Was Glad," which incorporates the vivats at the beginning. The boys, the children now, I should say, of Westminster School are the first to acclaim the sovereign. They sing this beautiful vivat, which everyone will remember from '53 as one of the most remarkable moments, and that's been rewritten to include the King, Rex Carolus, and also Regina Camilla, as opposed to Regina Elizabetha.
Can I, because last weekend we were talking about the oath, which we're all being asked to swear, or at least invited to swear a lot during as we watch the service. You got in touch about, because there's this thing about "May he live forever," which I was saying, well, that sounds a bit, but you were explaining there's a reason behind it. Why does that matter?
So in Zadok the priest, for example, and also in the Abbey, people will be singing "God save the King, long live the King, may the King live forever." Now, no one's assuming that this is going to be some Methuselah figure who's going to be around forever. It's not to be taken literally. It's a sign of loyalty and homage and fealty by showing your dedication to the King, that you wish him to live forever. There's a biblical reference from Daniel, but yes, that's the reality behind the much misunderstood line.
But you see, it's good though to get the background to that, to understand it all, and also. No, I was going to ask. Actually, no, that's a bit depressing.
Can I ask you?
I'm not going to mention that one.
Can I ask you about the weather? We are a bit worried about the weather. We're British. We have to ask you about the weather. Now, the latest reports saying it's going to be unsettled, but there could be showers throughout the day. Do you think that will put people off coming down to the Mall to celebrate, or do you think people just put up their brollies?
You know, the weather is part of the tradition of royal events now. Of course, 1953, June the 2nd was chosen specifically after months of research as the driest day, and it was the wettest day I think since records began. It poured down. Then, of course, in 2012 we had the Diamond Jubilee, the magnificent river pageant along the river where everyone was like a drenched rat. And then again in 2016 there was a big lunch here on the Mall, and that also rained.
Well,
so actually,
when we had our Platinum Jubilee party up near Birmingham.
Oh yes.
Do you remember that? Absolutely poured down, didn't it? For that, it was freezing and cold.
The two of us in the field with the wind coming in horizontally. That was a memory.
It was a memory. So as you know, as long as it's not that bad, we'll be
the real
fine.
problem is we may actually not have a flight past because of that, because the cloud level is going to be so low. But they're going to make a decision on that on the day, because we know how much the British weather changes. If you're told it's going to be raining in 3 days, you probably know it's not going to be raining in 3 days.
Yeah, well,
so let's fingers crossed, because of course, what a shame not to have the red arrows and the Spitfires flying over Buckingham Palace.
Would be wonderful. Rafe, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much. We'll catch you tomorrow. No doubt.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. The big day. Now, stay with us. Up next, results from the hotly contested Stoke-on-Trent local election. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely
Right.
stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. The time is 7:36. Good morning to you. You are watching and listening to GB News with Stephen and Ellie live from Buckingham Palace. You can see it behind us. It looks absolutely magnificent this morning.
It does. It's a little bit chilly down here, but I'd say it's mainly because we're just sat still for hours at a time. It'd be all right if you were walking about, but anyway, we're rubbing our hands together. We're doing all right. In the meantime, we're continuing to get updates on votes cast across England in those local elections yesterday. Let's head to Stoke to get the very latest from our reporter, Will Hollis. What have you got, Will?
Good morning. Yes, this is one of those election areas, Stoke-on-Trent, Stoke City Council, where they were fortunate enough to be counting all night, so that people like us in the media have something to report at this stage in the morning. About a third of council results have come in overnight, so we're still going to be waiting on about 2/3 of them. The result here in Stoke-on-Trent, though, that's a traditionally working class neighbourhood, traditionally red wall, is that Labour have won a majority control of the council, 29 seats out of 44. The Conservatives going down to just 14 seats. They went in with 22 seats. The real losers here appear to be the independents. The City Independents held, I think, 11 or 12 seats, and they're down just to 1. So it's really good news for Labour. For Stoke-on-Trent Labour, it shows that they can win this council. The last time that they won in the elections here in Stoke-on-Trent was in 2011. 2015 and 2019, it was a Conservative minority coalition backed up by those independents that I had just mentioned a moment ago. But what this means nationally for Keir Starmer's Labour Party is it shows that in these red wall seats, these traditional Labour voters, working class, through the collieries as well as the potting industry, this part of Staffordshire is known as the potteries, it shows that Labour can once again earn the trust of local voters here. And I was speaking to Gareth Snell, who is a former MP as well as being a candidate for the upcoming elections, and he was telling me if he thinks that Labour can win in Stoke Central.
Oh, I mean, absolutely we can win seats here. I mean, the biggest loser in Stoke-on-Trent tonight really was Jonathan Gullis. He failed to make any significant headway and consolidate in Stoke-on-Trent North. In my own seat in Stoke-on-Trent Central, there's now one Conservative councillor with everybody else being Labour. And in Stoke-on-Trent South, there were some huge wins for Labour as well. So I think we have still got work to do. There's absolutely no complacency, but it is undeniable that tonight we are the big winners in Stoke-on-Trent, and it sets up the next 12 months for winning a general election. That means winning back all 3 seats here in the city.
Yes, and he was just speaking about 3 seats. Those are the 3 parliamentary constituency seats in Stoke-on-Trent City. Now, until 2017 and 2019, 2 of those seats had always been Labour, and then they went to the Conservatives. It was that story that we started to see in 2017 and 2019 of red wall seats going blue. But tonight, or this morning, as you might like to call it, it's a really good indicator and exactly what the National Labour Party will be hoping for in places like Stoke-on-Trent, Plymouth and Medway as we go into probably another election year next year.
Ah, yes, very probably. Will, for now, thanks very much indeed. He's not used to doing overnights, is he?
No, poor Will.
Still thinks it's tonight.
He's doing a great job. Well, to him, he's still on the same shift, isn't he? I don't blame him.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one doing elections like
He's
that.
doing a great job. He really, really is. Lots of you getting in touch on local elections. Ian says, great show every day. Low turnout because change in system needing photo ID. What's wrong with the old system? Getting your polling card through the post and taking it with you to vote. This is all a hassle. And he signs it off, an avid viewer.
See, I disagree with you there. Which one is it? Oh, Ian. I disagree with you, Ian, because you didn't even need your voting card. So you could have just gone and said, oh, yeah, I'm such and such from 27 Coronation Close, and someone could have your vote.
Yeah.
So at least this way, no one else can have your vote. And I've had years where my polling card has never arrived, and you sort of think, has someone snaffled it and tried to vote on my behalf? I mean, I've still always voted, but so I sort of think it's not a bad thing, really.
But it's a controversial issue, isn't it? Lots of you getting in touch. We will share some of those. Also, let us know if you tried to make the Coronation quiche, because I'm not sold on it. But let me know let me know what you make of it, because the Coronation quiche has been rejected by the public. We'll find out what people are preferring instead next. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dems & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie, live from the Palace, 7:45. Still more horses going past.
Yes.
I'll tell you what I love about it. It's not just the noise, it's the smell. The smell of horses.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I love it.
doesn't
Absolutely
do it for
love
me.
it.
No, but the tulips do behind. Tulips
lovely.
look wonderful, the red tulips, and really heavy police presence as well. We're just seeing loads of police officers just walking by there. Obviously, security is very, very tight here at Buckingham Palace, but there's definitely a sense that we're getting very, very close, aren't we? Lots of movement, lots of preparations taking place here. Magnificent to be here in this moment of history, and we'll have it across the whole weekend here from Buckingham Palace.
We certainly will.
Yeah.
Should we see what lovely pictures we can find? Because here's a great one of the Prince and Princess of Wales. Having a pre-coronation drink at the Dog and Duck in Soho. I mean, who'd have thunk it? They took the Elizabeth line down to the pub yesterday, where they sipped pints at the bar and chatted to locals about coronation rehearsals, apparently. And doesn't Kate look a picture, as always? That's in the mirror for you this morning.
And I don't think she can put a foot wrong. I mean, I've seen loads of little videos from people that were in the crowd waiting.
Depends how many pints she had.
Well, I don't think she drank anything, to be honest. I think it was just a photo op for her. But William was sinking a pint. Good for him.
Yeah.
But I didn't see her drink it. But she was taking time to chat to people, and lots of people had queued up and were giving her flowers, and it just was lovely. And she said she was really looking forward to the coronation. She was feeling really excited, so it was very lovely. In the Telegraph, there's a great picture of King Charles laughing with the King of the Ashanti Kingdom, which we didn't know existed until this morning, did we, Stephen? But
we need to look that up.
we should Google that.
It looks great.
Well, they look like they're having a lovely time together, which is good. And this is I think my favourite story of today. Lord Andrew Lloyd Webber, has said that he hopes the coronation anthem that he has composed for the King is sang at churches across the country. Now, this was interesting. King Charles said to Andrew Lloyd Webber that he wanted a coronation anthem that was hummable. Hummable. So it would stay in your head all day, and you could leave church and you'd be humming it away in your
that's
head.
quite nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Oh, well, we shall have to wait and see what that's like. Meanwhile, if you're watching us or listening to us, you're probably not on the Mall, but there are plenty of people who are. Lots of campers who've bagged the best spots on the Mall ahead of the coronation. The Mail's got pictures of that this morning. There they are, braving it all. They're a hardy bunch.
Yeah.
Hardy Brits. In fact, not just Brits, though, are they? People from all over the world.
No, I met a few ladies there who'd come over from California.
Oh, really?
Made the flight over. They were actually neighbours of Harry and Meghan. Didn't take too fondly to them. But they're fine in the dry, but I am a bit worried about the rain that's forecast, especially overnight. It's not going to be nice if you're in a tent on the Mall, is it?
Yeah. Look, it's been a big night for elections in England, local elections in England. It's not been great for the Conservatives, I have to say, from the results we've had in so far. We've just heard from the Prime Minister.
Midlands, the North, you're losing everywhere. Prime Minister, why is that?
It's always disappointing to lose hard-working Conservative councillors, their friends, their colleagues, and I'm so grateful to them for everything that they've done. In terms of the results, it's still early. We've just had a quarter of the results in. But what I am going to carry on doing is delivering on the people's priorities. Halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. That's what people want us to do. That's what I'm going to keep hard at doing.
Now, the ex-Conservative leader of Medway Council blamed the unpopularity of your government, cost of living plans, the planning changes, NHS failings. That's all down to you. A clear message from voters. What's going to change?
Look, as I said, we've only had a quarter of the results in. Actually, we're making progress in key election battlegrounds like Peterborough, Bassetlaw, Sandwell. But the message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them. And that's about halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. That's what people care about. That's what they want us to deliver. And that's what I and the government are going to work very hard to do.
One of the big early trends is that working class voters look like they're going back to the Labour Party. Do you take personal responsibility for the overall vote? And did Boris Johnson have something that you don't?
Well, if you look at the results, we've only had a quarter of the results in, so it's hard to draw firm conclusions. We're actually making progress in key election battlegrounds like Peterborough, like Sandwell, like Bassetlaw, for example. And you mentioned the Labour Party. Look, I'm not detecting any massive groundswell of movement towards the Labour Party or excitement for their agenda. What people want us to do is focus on their priorities. Halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the boats. Those are the country's priorities. Those are this government's priorities, and that's what we're going to deliver.
What does the coronation tomorrow mean for you? And do you think everybody should take the oath?
I think everyone will be sending our best wishes to Their Majesties the King and Queen ahead of the coronation. I think it's a moment of enormous national pride. It's a demonstration of our country's character, and it's an opportunity for us to all look to the future in a spirit of service, hope and unity.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, putting a best spin he can on it at the moment. But we'll wait and see what the full results are towards the end of the day. Look, let's just have a very, very brief look at the papers this morning with Liz Kershaw and Benjamin Butterworth, who are back in the studio this morning. We're very tight for time, you two. Let's have a look at the Times, Liz, should we? Because I'm distraught to learn people aren't liking Coronation quiche.
Well, it's been announced by the French that it's not even a quiche. The only quiche has got to have ham, bacon bits in it, quiche Lorraine, and they've just dismissed it as a royal tart. So lots of people are choosing not to have it, but then on the other hand, if you wanted to make it, try going into a supermarket and getting eggs, because the palace has chosen to designate the official dish of the coronation as one that's egg-based at a time that, because of avian flu and all sorts of other factors, eggs are in short supply anyway. But I went in yesterday and the only ones you could get were like Burford Blues, £6 for half a dozen or something. So fat chance. But people are turning back to 1953 and the coronation of the Queen, Elizabeth II. And bearing in mind, we're so lucky now. I saw a guy last night in a supermarket filling a carry bag with sweets to dish out to the kids. Rationing of sweets after the Second World War was only abolished in 1952, just before the coronation. Meat and other protein rationing went on until 1954, so you had to eat what you could get coupons for in 1953. But the official dish was coronation chicken, and apparently the ingredients for that are flying off the shelves. I didn't know that it contained, of course, chicken, but also apricot jam, whipped cream, mayonnaise and curry powder, as well as red wine and onions. So that's the nation's favourite over the quiche, apparently. And if you get the Sun, it also tells you how to make A Big Marge. See what they did there instead of Big Mac? A Big Marge burger.
Oh, right. Oh, well, there you go.
Well, I don't blame them. I love a Coronation chicken, to be fair, over a quiche. Benjamin, we haven't got long, but let's just have a quick look at Ed Sheeran, who's won his law case against Marvin Gaye. This is in The Guardian.
He has, yeah. The family of Marvin Gaye tried to sue him for his song Thinking Out Loud, saying that it sounded like Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On, which you can't really say without singing, right? But I don't want to sound bizarre. But he's managed to win it. Now, Ed Sheeran had said that he would quit music altogether if he lost this. And basically, the judge said, and we've had so many cases like this recently, that the basics of a song cannot be copyrighted, they cannot be owned by anybody, and that's what Ed Sheeran used. And so he said that there's no chance he's going to give up the day job now. He's going to stick to making music. So, you know, commiserations for some people who don't like the ubiquitous Ed Sheeran sounds on the radio. But yeah, I think you've seen quite a few of these. There's quite a lot of people who seem to be trying to cash in on super famous pop stars having big hits and then claiming that the basic sounds that make up popular songs can be owned. And it's clearly ridiculous.
Yeah, well, there you go. He's won again as Ed Sheeran, not the first time he's been taken to court. Look, good to see you both. Thanks very much indeed. Don't go anywhere. We've got all the very latest on the local elections coming up. Plus, of course, the build-up to the coronation this weekend as we soak in the atmosphere here at the Palace. This is Breakfast on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit drab out there for many of us this morning. It will get brighter through the day, but watch out for some heavy showers later on. Could even be a few thunderstorms rumbling away. One area of low pressure has kind of developed another area of low pressure across the UK, and bands of showery rain have been tracking northwards through the night, making for a fairly grey start. Some places waking up to a bit of brightness, and generally across England and Wales, skies will brighten through the day. But outbreaks of rain this morning continuing for Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland. Probably the longest spells of sunshine over the far northwest of Scotland. The far northeast, blustery and fairly cloudy. And then in the south, the skies brighten. Heavy, thundery showers will break out this afternoon. Could be some torrential downpours, potential for disruption. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. But it won't rain all day between the downpours. Temperatures with a bit of brightness getting into the high teens. Still some heavy showers around this evening. So again, a lot of spray, surface water on the roads if you're heading away for the long weekends. The showers do fade though, most of us becoming dry through the night. But look at this, more wet weather then spiralling into the southwest, and that is going to spread northwards during Saturday. Ahead of it, I'm turning a little chilly, perhaps with some clearer spells, but generally a dry start, again for most on Saturday, but it won't last. Some question marks about the exact timing of that rain into the London area for the coronation, but it looks like being fairly grey and damp in London, along with much of the Midlands, Wales, and that rain will spread towards northern England later in the day. Much of the far north of England, a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland will be dry for most of tomorrow, and it may brighten up in the southwest as well, although the potential for more showers to come. It is looking fairly mixed through the long weekend. Sunday sees more heavy showers in the east, a bit drier perhaps in the west, and then we're looking at Monday seeing further rain coming in across the country.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m. Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of May. Today, the final countdown to the coronation is on. King Charles will hold a special celebration tonight as he prepares to fulfil his destiny tomorrow. The votes are in. It goes from bad to worse for the Conservatives as Labour gains seats in local elections across the country. Our reporters are out and about with the very latest.
It's been an eventful night for the Lib Dems here in Hull, where they've maintained their control over the council and even increased the number of seats. I'll have more for you very soon.
Well, what could all this mean for Rishi Sunak? One Tory councillor who lost his seat has blamed Westminster as a key factor in his party's performance. And it's never too late to relive your dreams. We meet the 90-year-old former dancer who was invited to the Queen's coronation all the way back in 1953. Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon. I'll be joined very soon by Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace. And it's a wonderful morning down here at the Palace. Perhaps a little bit chilly if you're sitting still for a fair few hours, but that's fine. We've seen all the preparations so far. Loads of police, security, stewards all filing past a minute ago. And we've had the horses, the soldiers riding the horses in their number 2s, the green uniforms, keeping all the fancy stuff ready, of course, for tomorrow. But all the preparations, it's preparations for them, of course, preparation for the horses as well. You don't want the horses to be too jittery, and so they've all been practicing, and that's just wonderful to see. And I tell you what's nice, that they're all, of course, going to be on absolute best duty tomorrow. And today, as they've gone past, they're all looking, they're wondering what we're doing, they're giving us a smile and a wave, and I think that's really nice, because it gets to show you that the people involved in all of this are real people. They're men and women of the armed forces who are playing a part in history, and they must be, number one, exhausted, but two, proud as punch of what they're able to do for their king tomorrow. And it's just nice to see them looking happy, looking like they're enjoying themselves, having a bit of a smile and a wave. I think that's a really lovely thing to be able to see ahead of them being on absolute rigid best behaviour tomorrow for the event itself. Now, of course, whilst we look forward to what is going to be an amazing, historic weekend, we've got to look at what's been perhaps not an amazing night for the Conservative Party in the local elections across England. That's England only this time round. It's looking a bit bleak for the Tories, it has to be said, and the spoils being divided between Labour and the Liberal Democrats. But with only 64 councils who've been counting overnight, we won't know the full extent of the picture until much later on today. Let's talk to our senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, who's in the studio, along with former special advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley, both there lined up. Charlie, as a Tory, can I start with you first and foremost? Can this be seen as anything other than what looks like a really bad night for the Tories?
Well, good morning, Stephen. And as you said, it's far too early to tell at this stage. We have to wait a bit longer until we get a better picture of what the night is going to provide. There were predictions that the Conservatives would lose up to or around 1,000 seats. That's something we have to be mindful of. Nobody wants to see, if you're a Conservative supporter, any Conservative councillor losing its seat. But in an election cycle where the Conservatives have been in power for 13 years, where in some of those council seats there's been Conservative administrations for much longer than that, of course it's going to be expected that we will, the Conservatives would lose seats. But I think the key point when this translates into who might go on to win the next general election, I think it's far too early to determine that this is an outright victory for Labour when it seems as though they're not picking up the seats or councils that they should do, and they're going backwards in some areas, such as Peterborough, such as Sandwell, as the party chairman was saying earlier. So it's not a foregone conclusion yet. There's still a lot to play for between now and the next general election, but we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the day pans out.
Like Stoke-on-Trent as Brexit capital, as it was known, and it does seem to be, I mean, Tom Harwood telling us earlier on, it does seem to be in areas actually that had a bigger sort of Brexit support where the Tories are falling back even more than they are in other areas.
Well, I think that with Stoke-on-Trent, the important thing from the Labour point of view is that that's where they've got 3 MPs. This is Red Wall area. These are the areas that they actually have to capture to win the general election. The same goes for Medway, which they've taken. So 3 Tory MPs in Medway. It's one of those places that kind of is Labour-Tory over the years. But those are significant. It is a bit sad that Labour didn't take Bolton. They had a good chance there. But they got Plymouth, which was a target seat. So at the moment, it is early days, as Charlie says. At the moment, Labour look like they're doing pretty well. And you're talking about 115 gains so far, with 214 Tory losses. Now, again, we'll have to see later on this afternoon how that pans out. But it's not looking good for the Conservatives at the moment.
Charlie, I wanted to ask you about the comments from a Tory councillor who's basically blamed Westminster for the results of his party so far. Do you think that this is Westminster issues that have affected what we're seeing so far, or is it local ones?
Well, I think at this stage there's no silver bullet, as it were, to determine why people, because it's quite a low turnout, as you were saying earlier on. Again, we'll never know the full turnout until we see the full results. But I think there's a number of reasons why people might have stayed at home, why they didn't vote Conservative. That could be because of Westminster. To a certain extent, you can't blame them. After the years that the Tory government have endured under Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, which, was a bad budget, it sank Conservative support in terms of the polls. Of course, there's a lot of rebuilding work to be done, and Rishi Sunak has started that. He's obviously been the Prime Minister for 6 or 7 months now. The political turmoil has subsided. The economy has stabilised. There's obviously an awful lot more and a lot of work that it needs to do to win people over again who might not have voted Conservative this time round. But the key thing to bear in mind is that those voters that haven't voted Conservative this time round and might have had problems with the government in the past, they are still up for grabs when it comes to a general election. These voters haven't voted for an outright Labour Party. They've gone to smaller and minority groups. That's expected at a local level when it comes to these kinds of elections. So I sympathise with people that might want to exercise frustration at the ballot box against the Conservatives at this occasion. But going forward, the Conservatives will redouble their efforts, I'm sure, to make sure that they win those people back when it comes to a general election.
Which is interesting, Nigel. How much of the results that we've seen so far, if it's going the way we expect, how much of this is showing support for Labour, or how much of it is just showing dissatisfaction with the Tories?
Well, I think that there is actually quite a lot of apathy out there because we're getting sort of lowish turnouts, not as low as some people expected, but we're in the region of the 30s. So people are both angry and apathetic. So what they're angry with is what Rishi Sunak has called sort of the box set politics of the last year, and they're a bit disillusioned with all politicians, not just the Conservative Party. Obviously, because the Tories are in government, that's the one they're going to be punishing today. But the disillusionment, I think, is with everybody. Keir Starmer is cutting through, and the key thing we have to see is, by the end of the day, whether or not the overall national share of the vote, which should be about 38% plus for Keir Starmer, is 10 points ahead of the Conservative Party. If that's the case, he's on course to win the next general election.
Okay. Thank you very much to both of you. Let's get the latest results now from Hull with our reporter Anna Riley. Anna, good morning to you, and a good night for the Lib Dems there.
Good morning. Yes, the Lib Dems are certainly celebrating here in Hull after retaining their control over the power of the council. And the makeup of the local authority was on a knife edge as they tried to fend off Labour and regain control of the seats, and they did. They gained 3 seats, 2 from Labour and 1 from an independent non-aligned councillor. So that means that they've now got a 7-seat majority on the council. So the Lib Dems have got 32 seats compared to Labour's 25. And the Lib Dem council leader Mike Ross here was delighted with the result, and he vowed to carry on the work he started last year when his party came to power, taking control from Labour, who had previously held the council for 10 years. And he said, tonight's been a fantastic result for Lib Dems in Hull. At a time when the Labour Party nationally are polling really high, we were still able to take seats from them. It shows what we can achieve here and nationally. And it was issues around traffic, specifically bus lanes, that people here voting were concerned about. But it's worth bearing in mind turnout was low. Just 22% of people here came to cast their vote, and that was down from 23.5% last year. So less than a quarter of people in Hull turning out to vote. And how the new voter ID rules play into that, we don't yet know, but we have been hearing stories from people being turned away from polling stations due to not having the right ID, or even due to wearing masks. And with Hull being a traditional red wall seat, we've got 3 Labour MPs here in Hull. It'll be interesting to see in the national elections next year if Lib Dems could potentially do the same with the parliamentary seats here in Hull as they have done in the council.
OK, Anna, thank you very much indeed. Well, we've just been getting some reaction from the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, the South East, the South West, Midlands, the North, you're losing everywhere. Prime Minister, why is that?
It's always disappointing to lose hard-working Conservative councillors, their friends, their colleagues, and I'm so grateful to them for everything that they've done. In terms of the results, it's still early. We've just had a quarter of the results in. But what I am going to carry on doing is delivering on the people's priorities. Halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the votes. That's what people want us to do. That's what I'm going to keep hard at doing.
Now, the ex-Conservative leader of Medway Council blamed the unpopularity of your government, cost of living plans, the planning changes, NHS failings. That's all down to you. A clear message from voters. What's going to change?
Look, as I said, we've only had a quarter of the results in. Actually, we're making progress in key election battlegrounds like Peterborough, Bassetlaw, Sandwell. But the message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them. And that's about halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the votes. That's what people care about, that's what they want us to deliver, and that's what I and the government are going to work very hard to do.
One of the big early trends is that working class voters look like they're going back to the Labour Party. Do you take personal responsibility for the overall vote? And did Boris Johnson have something that you don't?
Well, if you look at the results, we've only had a quarter of the results in, so it's hard to draw firm conclusions. We're actually making progress in key election battlegrounds like Peterborough, like Sandwell, like Bassetlaw, for example. And you mentioned the Labour Party. Look, I'm not detecting any massive groundswell of movement towards the Labour Party or excitement for their agenda. What people want us to do is focus on their priorities. Halving inflation, growing the economy, reducing debt, cutting waiting lists and stopping the votes. Those are the country's priorities. Those are this government's priorities, and that's what we're going to deliver.
What does the coronation tomorrow mean for you? And do you think everybody should take the oath?
I think everyone will be sending our best wishes to Their Majesties the King and Queen ahead of the coronation. I think it's a moment of enormous national pride. It's a demonstration of our country's character, and it's an opportunity for us to all look to the future in a spirit of service, hope and unity.
Hope and unity. Well, that's a positive. It's a positive message thing about the coronation. It never applies to politics, though, does it? Let's talk to former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Mellor, who's here. Good morning to you.
Good morning. I'm glad you noticed me freezing to death in the corner.
It's a little bit nippy, isn't it, this morning? Look, what do you make of all of this? I mean, we've got a lot of results still to come in, but the projection seems to show 1,000 losses for the Tories.
Oh, and more.
And more, you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, local elections are always going to go badly for the government in office. These I think, are particularly bad because, remember, it all depends what base you start off from. And the last time these seats that the Tories are losing in such massive numbers, the last time these seats were contested was during the declining time of Theresa May. So these were bad results on which a whole lot of even worse results have been piled.
It looks like it's going to be a very low turnout. I mean, local elections generally are, but we are looking around 30%. What do you think got people out to vote, the ones who did? Was it a protest about what's going on in Westminster? Do you think it was local issues? Or Martin's been in touch, just want to share this with you, who says this is just a massive rejection of Brexit. People are realising they were lied to in the lead up to the votes.
Well, I mean, in some parts of the country, here, for instance, London, was very anti-Brexit. But no, I think that, look, I contrast this with 1997, when a Tory government was defeated and lost more than half its seats. The question is it going to be as bad as that for Rishi Sunak? The answer is it doesn't have to be, but it could be, because I can remember very well, because I lost my seat that night in 1997, and Tony Blair was then regarded as something of a saviour, whereas I don't think the present Labour leadership is regarded as saviours of anything. So the question is, how far are the public so disillusioned with the Tories that it doesn't matter if Rishi Sunak delivers, as he is doing, rather better government than his two predecessors? People have already made their minds up. You know, it's like when I was in politics, people used to say they should have the vote the day the election is called, because nothing will change. And of course, that's so often the case.
But you see, it's interesting, though, isn't it? Because we're looking at this from almost like a Westminster perspective. It's all based on national politics and not local issues. And yet we do know people vote differently at general elections.
They do. But I still think that what you're getting is evidence that, normally what a party does is say, we're going to lose X seats, and then when they don't, they say, well, it was a very good result for us. But, having said 1,000, which is the Tories are now losing, 1 in 3 of the seats that they had after a bad year, and after a bad, the people who are fighting the seats now survived a bad year 4 years ago. And basically, I think that this is bad. And the question is, what are the Tories going to do about it? I mean, I think Rishi Sunak is actually well liked, and he's not a difficult man to respect. But if there's Boris floating around in the background making a nuisance of himself, if people are determined to keep the wounds flowing blood about Brexit and so on, the Tories have not only have no hope, they don't deserve to have hope.
And yet, I mean, in the sense that you say Rishi Sunak's getting on with a job, it's very difficult to know where we're going to be in 12 months, isn't it, or 18 months. We could be in a much happier position financially.
But what 1997 shows, when, as I say, the Tories lost more than half their seats, is that you can run a good economy, but if the public has made their mind up, nothing changes.
Ah, yes, but is this 1997 or is it 1992?
Well, I was very active in both of those elections, and I have to say, I personally think it's going to be very difficult for the Tories to get a result, because I don't think the people that they've got are charismatic enough to strike the public as being effective after there have been a number of years of pretty ineffective Conservative government. But, plainly, I hope it'll be different. But my hope is, I'm not going to bet the ranch on it.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's not a long amount of time, not a long period of time to turn around a very big ship, is it? I mean, what is so interesting about the results we've seen so far, and it is still early stages, is being picked up by Labour, but also the Lib Dems are doing well.
But
we had Catherine Forster in
always
Maidenhead.
happens in strong Tory areas where, I'm heading off as soon as this is over to the southwest. People don't vote Labour down there, but they do vote Lib Dem. And I mean, and of course the worry is the Tories are assailed both by the Labour Party and by the Lib Dems, and so they're caught in the middle of a difficult situation where it's very hard to make a compelling case as to why people should vote Conservative. And of course, that's going to be the problem. I mean, at a certain point, there is a change of government, because that's the way it is.
Look, to happier matters, David.
Yes.
What did you make of all of this?
Well, I mean, look, I was here last in this situation for the funeral of Princess Diana. And obviously, there's nothing like the emotion that there was then. But what you see are a whole lot of people getting on with the job in a very effective way. I mean, we do pageantry, don't we?
Yes,
we do.
And we do pageantry extremely well. And I just feel the atmosphere. And, I think this is going to be a great show. I hope it hasn't been cut down to the point that it won't be as grand as it ought to be, because while I think the King is worried about making things too grand, I don't think he should be, because that's what the public buy.
Yeah.
Because you don't go to any other shop to get it,
Yeah, no, that's
And
true.
indeed, what we've been saying this morning is people coming in from all over the world to be a part of this. I mean, it's what people want to see, isn't it?
And as I say, we do it brilliantly well. But hopefully, I mean, look, it was supposed to be going to rain. It hasn't rained yet. Because, it would be so much nicer if the sun shone upon the righteous. Don't you
Well,
think?
it would be very
and
nice.
with you here, I mean, they can't get more righteous than that.
Well, one
The
tries,
sun should
David.
shine
One
upon
tries. One tries. Well, I don't think many people would agree with you.
Have you tried to make the coronation quiche? Sorry, darling, a very important
Do you know
question.
what? I am very against the coronation.
Oh.
Why?
It strikes me as a sort of a jumped-up vegetable tart. But I tell you something,
I'm with you, David.
We're going down to Dorset, and we're having various of our neighbours round to watch the coronation, since no one saw fit to invite me. Now, how could that be? Anyway, moving hastily on, it has been agreed in our household that we will go back to 1953 and have Coronation chicken, because at least that is a decent, tasty dish. And all this veggie stuff, ugh.
Mella, it's a disgrace.
I know, but
I'm going to make
if
a
I wasn't a
Coronation
disgrace, why would I be here?
Well, you could be watching it on
I'm only
GB
here
News
because
tomorrow.
I'm a disgrace. Well, I probably will be.
Good.
Because I probably will be because
probably.
I've got nothing to do except ply a number of our visitors with lots of drink. And the more they drink, the more they will think what a wonderful day.
Well, quite right too, David. Good to see you have a wonderful coronation.
I'm with David Mellor. It's Coronation chicken all the way. Back to 1953 for me. Let us know.
I'm a vegetarian.
And you're happy with that, aren't you?
So I think, the quiche looks pretty good to me.
Yeah. Let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. But stay with us. Our reporters will be live across the country as the local election results continue to come in. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dems & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
good morning. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News, a coronation breakfast, no less,
Yes.
live from Buckingham Palace, where we're soaking up the atmosphere ahead of the big day tomorrow.
It is absolutely magnificent, isn't it? Even though I can see dark cloud just by
Can
the
you?
palace. So, yeah, if you're watching on
Oh.
TV, you might be able to see it.
Oh, actually, yes, you can see
Let's
it on camera.
hope
Look
it
at that.
holds off for us.
The place is absolutely heaving with police, security, all the horses and soldiers keep going past. So it's lovely to see, actually.
Yeah, and people
it's-
setting up their tents as well.
Yeah, and do you know what? If it does rain today or tomorrow, never mind, is what I have to say. We just have to crack on with it. On we go. We're British. We keep going.
Yeah.
It won't matter.
What's that phrase? There's no such thing as bad weather. It's
Just not enough umbrellas.
No, it's
Oh, sorry.
bad outfits or poor outfit choices. I think that's what it is.
Something like that.
Yeah, and I've seen lots of people out there in their waterproof trousers and their waterproof jackets. They're very, very well prepared. They're ready for anything.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to enjoy it, whatever happens. It
Good.
looks magnificent here. We're soaking it all up, and lots more to come of all of the coronation build up. But there's another big story going on today.
Oh,
And it's
yes,
the
yes,
local
there is.
elections
Local
in
elections in England, and it's look, it's very early days because only 64 councils were counting overnight.
64. I think.
So it's a case of waiting until the end of the day to get the full picture. However, if you look at the sort of trajectory so far, it's not looking good for the Conservatives. It's looking pretty good for Labour and actually pretty good for the Lib Dems as well. Let's see what's happening in the West Midlands. Our reporter Jack Carson is in Dudley for us. Morning to you, Jack. What's the picture there?
Well, good morning to you both. Well, here in Dudley yesterday at the council elections, around a third of the seats were up for grabs, about 25. The Conservatives held a majority here overnight too, only losing one seat on the council. Labour did make gains. They gained the seats of Wollaston, Stourbridge Town and Brockmore and Pensnet, also with that seat unseating the current mayor on the council. So they'll see that as quite a bit of a victory, but it's also probably going to be seen as a bit of a victory for the Conservatives here as well, because they gained what was here known on the council as quite a safe seat in Brearley Hill. They gained that seat here. Kadar Zardar, who's the Labour opposition here in Dudley Council, has defended not taking as many seats as probably Labour councillors have across the country, saying that we've cut the wafer-thin majorities of the Tory councillors here, and he said he's always said by 2024 Dudley will be a Conservative council. And we'll have to see, obviously, what the next year's general election brings up, because this seat is one of those interesting seats. It's on the kind of suburban areas of Birmingham, so you're not getting much of the heavy Labour support that you get in the inner city, and you're starting to move into the more suburban kind of Conservative voters here in Dudley. And the Conservative MP for Dudley North, Mark Longy, says that he's confident tonight that this result here, the fact that Labour haven't made as many gains as probably what they would have wanted to on the council here, will be good news for them. But he does say that more work still needs to be done to try and inspire voters to come out and vote, particularly those Conservative voters. We've spoken about it, of course, many times before, that a lot of Conservative voters possibly feel disenfranchised and aren't coming down and out to vote. That was particularly the case here yesterday. Turnout was around 30% overall, which is probably more than a lot of council elections across the country. But when you look at each seat and each kind of ward that was voted on, turnout was down 3-4 points in each ward compared to that turnout of 2019. So here in Dudley, not the gains that Labour probably would have wanted, and it's what seemed to be possibly a rarity this morning, with quite a few, of course, Tory councillors losing their seats across the country. They've made a little bit of ground and have kept their majority here on the council.
Okay, Jack, thank you.
And we can go now to our reporter Catherine Forster, who's been on the move for us. I believe that she's now in Windsor. Good morning to you, Catherine. What's the latest?
Well, good morning from the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. The count was at Maidenhead. I've now come down to Windsor. That's Eton, just over my shoulder. A real seismic shift in the council here. It was controlled by the Conservatives. They had 22 seats here. As of about 7 o'clock this morning, it has now moved over to the Liberal Democrats. They have now got 22 seats, and the Conservatives have gone down to just 7. So a desperate night for the Conservatives, and Lib Dem councillors that I was speaking to absolutely absolutely cock-a-hoop. They were confident of winning this. They thought it could be done. It's been solidly Conservative for 16 years, but real happiness here. And there will be concerns, of course, as what this means for the Conservatives, because of course they're losing to Labour in the north in the red wall, and now it looks like they're beginning to lose in the so-called blue wall of these formerly safe Conservative seats. A lot of discontent, and the Lib Dems are picking up being the beneficiaries of that.
Do we know what's driving it? I mean, because that's going to be crucial in discussing this. I mean, when the minute the heartlands, the Tory heartlands, come under this sort of threat, Catherine, they'll want the people in Westminster will want to know why.
Yes, they certainly will. And we know, of course, it's not a general election. People do vote differently. Lib Dems tend to do well in local elections. But all that said, there is clearly a lot of anger here over the Conservatives' performance over the last 13 years, but specifically over the last year. 3 changes of Prime Minister, as Rishi Sunak said the other day, the box set of drama, and then the mini budget, the financial effects of that, the cost of living crisis, and a lot of people really very fed up with the Conservatives. Now, as you say, there's some of their core voters here. They're not happy. They're either not voting and sitting on their hands at home, or they're changing to the Lib Dems. So really worrying for the Conservatives, who are of course saying, yes, it's disappointing, yes, it's not what we hoped for, but you know, they're saying that this was pretty much priced in, but obviously a long way to go. But it's looking like that expectation of up to 1,000 council seat losses may well actually be borne out by the end of the day.
Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Interesting, loads of you getting in touch on this. Roger says, I didn't vote yesterday in the local elections. It's the first time I've not voted in about 30 years. I didn't vote because I feel UK politicians are not people to look up to anymore, and they've created a parliament which resembles a cesspit in quality and ethics, and that applies to all sides of the House. I'm just ignoring all of them and getting on with my life, setting my own standards.
Okay. Suggesting that it was Westminster issues. That means that fewer people have turned out. Leanne in Kent says, I'm a lifelong Tory voter, but I didn't vote at all yesterday due to how the Tory party treated Boris Johnson. I'm not even a fan of Boris. I'm just a Brexit supporter. And Rob in Lincolnshire says the swing away from the Tories is self-inflicted. People don't like backstabbers, and that's exactly what Rishi Sunak did to Boris Johnson. So the two of them on the same sort of thing.
Yeah, Jay said it looks like those who lent their vote to the Conservatives have taken it back very quickly. When you're good enough to lend someone something, the person should look after it like it's their own, and the Conservatives have totally failed to do this. They've failed on votes, failed on the economy, and failed on Conservative values. So it's not just a, well, would you say it's a, someone's saying, was it Stephen saying it's a protest vote? People are sick of it all.
Stephen, yes.
But is it just a protest vote, or is it people thinking it's time for a change now? I don't know. Anyway, keep your thoughts coming through. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Stay with us. We're going to be discussing how royal fans are setting up camp outside the palace ahead of tomorrow's coronation. And Liz Kershaw and Benjamin Butterworth will be going through the papers. That's next. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:40. This is Coronation. I think he said Coronation Chicken. Coronation Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
I thought you were going to say this is Coronation Street, and I was like, wrong
No.
No,
It's lovely to have you with us here down at the Palace, where the storm actually it's clearing up a little bit behind us. Look at that.
Hopefully you've missed it. There were storm clouds brewing behind the Palace, and we thought we're about to be... having said that, I'm seeing rain.
Are you?
I think there's a drizzle. There you go, right on cue. It started to rain here at Buckingham Palace, which won't be too good for people who are camping out on the Mall, which I believe is our top story. We're going to be talking to Liz Kershaw and Benjamin Butterworth about. Good morning to you both. Liz, this is the story that you've got, haven't you? Royal fans from around the world are setting up camping on the Mall, and they're now going to be getting a bit wet, I think.
Yeah, I met a lot of lovely people yesterday, and I just don't want to swap with them waking up in a tiny tent on the hard ground this morning. But I have to say, they were so well equipped. They had solar panels for their phones and laptops and stuff. Oh. There's loads of toilets in St James's Park just behind them. They're being really well looked after, apart from all the police, which you'll have seen as well, you know, in pairs just strolling around. And there are lots of security men in Ivy's jackets, and they were being really lovely to everybody. In fact, they were on first name terms with some of them. And I just wanted to say a special hello to Joanne and Lucy, sisters from Bangor. Oh, there they are. And one of them had forgotten the tent, so they were going to have to share a one-man tent, but the sisters. And they're GB News viewers, and they went, there's all the people walking around and trying to... Princess Anne drove past, but they went, it's Liz Kershaw, it's Liz Kershaw. So, hello. And then all these Americans, because I was wearing this coat, thought, oh my God, who's that? So they were all coming up and saying, could we have a selfie? I think they thought I was a minor member of the royal family. So I milked it. But it was a great atmosphere. And I don't know how the heck you've got over to your broadcast suite there. I saw there's a whole arc of them out there facing the palace. Yes, suite tent. And I thought, I'm going over to have a look. But the only way to do it, unless you went all the way around the palace, was to climb over the railings and run across the mall. And I was going to do it. My friend Jeff said I'd probably get jumped on by armed
You'd
police.
get shot.
Yeah,
you probably would.
So I didn't do that. But
yes, don't take any risks unless you've got the right passes. You're not going to get in.
No, but it was good fun, and I admire those people for being there so early. All I want to see is the royal coach. Somebody said. And it's really fascinating, just quickly.
Yeah.
If you think about the last coronation, there was no telly. There were no mobile phones. It was people up, in the sticks or in the industrial north, they had to go to the cinema a week later to see it. Or if they were lucky, a neighbour had got a tiny TV and invited them round. But the world has changed so much since 1953.
Hasn't it just? Oh, someone's knocked our camera. There we go. We'll get it back. Yeah, it has changed remarkably. My granddad built a telly for the coronation. How you do that, I don't know. He was an electrician up at the shipyard, so he built a telly. And mind you, we'll be able to watch it on their phones, Benjamin. And yet the Times saying if we use our phones too much, it's bad for our blood pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that you were talking about how much times have changed. There is one person alive who I interviewed recently, and they're on their 6th monarch. They were born in the Edwardian era. They're the last Edwardian alive, Ethel Caterham. She's about to be 114 years old, and this will be the 5th coronation in her life. She's the last Edwardian on the planet, which is quite remarkable. She won't remember the first one because she was a couple of months old when it happened, but this is her 6th monarch. So that's the great-great-grandparent of King Charles III. So, we have that anchor into history that happens through the monarchy, which is brilliant. Now, one problem they didn't have, as you say, was mobile phones. And apparently, if you use your mobile phone for more than 30 minutes a day, a massive study of 212,000 people has found that it can increase your blood pressure. And if you do more than 6 hours, it can have quite serious consequences. So, I must say, as a journalist, I spend a lot of time on the phone, asking people questions and being hung up on. And so, I think this is quite an interesting one. And lots of people will be watching this on their mobile phones over the coming days. And I think it's probably different watching the telly on your phone, so keep doing that. But yeah, it's a big study on the front page of the Times.
Yep. Liz, let's stay with the coronation theme, shall we? And this is King Charles's most famous quotes in the Times.
Yes, there's a special pull-out today about the monarchy. Excuse me, not just today's ceremonials, but what it means constitutionally and everything else. And some personal quotes from Prince Charles. I mean, he's famous, really, for this one. To get the best results, you must talk to your vegetables. That really branded him, didn't it, as a bit of a nutter back in the day, but,
It's true. It's true.
And he says, I don't see why politicians and others should think they have the monopoly of wisdom. I think most of our viewers and listeners would agree with that one. And I've been entirely motivated by a desperate desire to put the great back into Britain, and that was in 1993, so he was well ahead of Trump. And this is his... All my life, people have been telling me what to do. I'm tired of it. My private life has become an industry. People are making money out of it. I just want some peace. So perhaps after the coronation, he'll be going on a world privacy tour.
Yeah, maybe. I tell you what, I can understand his position on that, though. I tell you what, let's just finish off with the eye, Benjamin, should we? Giraffes. I love a giraffe.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the real news of the day. It turns out that giraffes are better at maths than I am. Apparently, giraffes, according to research from a zoo in Barcelona, can use statistics. So this research done at Barcelona Zoo found that the animals can predict the chances of a keeper giving them a certain type of treat, and they can use their statistical skills to work out what's going to do. They can do calculations in their minds. Now, I don't know, this kind of shocked me that giraffes could have this skill, but maybe we often underestimate the kind of skill, the kind of ability and intelligence that a lot of animals have. But yeah, they can, you know, if you're sort of leaning out at Chester Zoo offering a banana or something, I don't know what giraffes eat, offering some food to a giraffe, turns out they're going to be using their mind to work out the chances of what they're going to get, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I love it. Look, thank you both very much indeed. It's been good to see you this morning, Liz and Benjamin.
Thank you. Now, there's just one more day until the King's coronations, and one of the more ancient traditions is the inclusion of the Stone of Scone, also known as the Stone of Destiny.
Ah, yes, indeed. Now, King Charles III will be the latest in a long line of Scottish, English and ultimately British monarchs who have been crowned atop the stone, but it sits actually under his coronation chair.
So what exactly is the history behind this ancient tradition? Well, our Scotland reporter Tony Maguire has the story.
It may not look like much, but this 152kg sandstone block is one of the most historically significant artefacts in all the British Isles. Scotland and England have pilfered and plundered the Stone of Destiny from one another for more than 700 years. Prior to the Scottish Wars of Independence in 1296, Scottish kings were crowned sitting on the stone at Scone Palace, until it was seized as spoils of war by King Edward I and used in English king coronations for 400 years until the union of the crowns in 1707. Now it's the turn of King Charles III to sit on the coronation chair, carrying on the 1,000-year tradition. Rachel Pickering, Senior Cultural Resources Advisor at Historic Environment Scotland, explains the significance of the Stone of Destiny in Saturday's ceremony.
It's hard to say exactly what people believed about the stone in the Middle Ages, but in its time in Scotland, it's obvious that it had really important symbolic significance, that it was perceived to have a very long history that was interlinked with the origins of Scotland as a kingdom, and a long line of monarchs that had used the stone in rituals of inauguration.
One of the more colourful chapters of the Stone of Destiny's history is its theft from Westminster Abbey by 4 Scottish students on Christmas Day in 1950. It wasn't recovered until 3 months later from the high altar at Arbroath Abbey in Fife. Since returning to Scotland in 1996, the Stone of Destiny has been on display at Edinburgh Castle, right next to the Scottish Crown Jewels, as part of the Honours of Scotland collection. The coronation loan is a divisive issue for the public. Or so I thought.
Do you to know what the Stone of Destiny is?
No.
Not a clue, no.
Don't know.
No?
No idea.
No.
No.
Wait, is that not King Arthur?
And members of the public who knew of the stone had this to say.
It's going down for Charles's coronation. I think that's a good thing.
I think it's a very positive thing, yes, absolutely.
I think it's a good thing for Scotland. It means that something that we're so proud of is going down to such a big event.
The days of pilfering and plundering are long behind us, and the Stone of Destiny will return to Edinburgh after this weekend's festivities. Now, half of Scotland may be planning to snub coronation celebrations, but 1,000 years of tradition carries on regardless when Charles III is crowned on the Stone of Destiny this Saturday. Tony Maguire, GB News.
Yeah, I went to see it actually in Edinburgh Castle earlier on this year, February. It's again, I mean, it doesn't look anything.
I was about to say, it doesn't look like
It doesn't really
much,
look anything, but it's fascinating to see. And just know that it's played a part in all of this history, and that it was going to be down here for this weekend.
Oh, that is a wonderful thought. Do you know, that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about this lead-up, is the amount I have learnt. Didn't know about the Stone of Destiny, and now we're just learning about all these lovely traditions that we're going to see that will be making an appearance over the coronation weekend. Let's bring in our royal correspondent now, Cameron Walker.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ellie. We're about to have a royal parting, I'm afraid. I'm not sure who's in the car. It looked like Princess Anne to me, the Princess Royal.
just travelling past in a convoy. Sorry to interrupt, that's very exciting. You don't know who's going to go past.
Nice.
Yes.
She's been very busy because when I was here on Wednesday, she was going to and from.
She was. She does loads of engagements, a number of them. Of course, she's going to be leading that part of that procession, the King's procession, going escorting His Majesty the King, of course, her brother, to Westminster Abbey and back again as the Golden Stick in waiting. She'll be on horseback.
Isn't it interesting, actually, how she, I mean, since she always has played a very strong role, but she really does seem to be the trusted confidant of the King, doesn't she?
Yes, she certainly does, and I think even from watching the interview she did with Canadian channel CBC a couple of days ago, you could just tell she knows how to handle the media, and also knows how to very much handle royal duty. She never oversteps the mark, is what I have noticed, and she is the hardest working royal. Just have to look at the number of engagements she does. She does more than any other working member of the royal family, and I think it was very funny the point she made, where the idea of a slimmed down monarchy worked perhaps when there was a lot more members of the royal family around. She didn't go as far as to mention Prince Andrew, Prince Harry, Meghan, and of course very sadly we lost the late Queen and Duke of Edinburgh as well in recent years. But clearly she feels that the royal family, the firm, with herself in it, and perhaps the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh and others, are very much here to stay.
So just one day to go now, Cameron. What do we know about what King Charles will be doing this evening before his big day tomorrow? We're hearing he's feeling quite relaxed.
Quite relaxed, yes. I suspect he's a little bit apprehensive as well, because he wants the country, and indeed the other realms and territories where he is head of state, and the Commonwealth, to enjoy the day. I'm told by someone very close to him that is his main concern. He wants everybody to enjoy themselves and be able to celebrate the weekend. But in Buckingham Palace tonight, we are expecting a diplomatic reception very similar to what we had actually on the eve of the late Queen's funeral, where all the foreign heads of state and country representatives who have travelled to the United Kingdom for the coronation, we're expecting around 100 heads of state. 213, I think, countries are represented at the coronation. So quite a large number. They are going to be hosted by the King, Queen Consort, other members of the royal family, I suspect senior government ministers as well, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, of course, because all the heads of state which have been invited, and indeed other countries, that would have been on Foreign Office advice. So it's not Buckingham Palace that makes a decision on which countries attend.
No. I'm sure they're all very pleased to be here. Cameron, thank you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. But we will bring you all the very latest from the local elections as those results continue to come through, as well as all the last-minute coronation preparations. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit drab out there for many of us this morning. It will get brighter through the day, but watch out for some heavy showers later on. Could even be a few thunderstorms rumbling away. One area of low pressure has kind of developed another area of low pressure across the UK, and bands of showery rain have been tracking northwards through the night, making for a fairly grey start. Some places waking up to a bit of brightness, and generally across England and Wales, skies will brighten through the day. But outbreaks of rain this morning continuing for Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland. Probably the longest spells of sunshine over the far northwest of Scotland. The far northeast, blustery and fairly cloudy, and then in the south, the skies brighten. Heavy, thundery showers will break out this afternoon. Could be some torrential downpours, potential for disruptions. Certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. But it won't rain all day between the downpours. Temperatures with a bit of brightness getting into the high teens. Still some heavy showers around this evening, so again a lot of spray, surface water on the roads if you're heading away for the long weekends. The showers do fade though, most of us becoming dry through the night. But look at this, more wet weather then spiralling into the southwest, and that is going to spread northwards during Saturday. Ahead of it, it's turning a little chilly, perhaps with some clearer spells, but generally a dry start again for most on Saturday, but it won't last. Some question marks about the exact timing of that rain into the London area for the coronation, but it looks like being fairly grey and damp in London, along with much of the Midlands, Wales, and that rain will spread towards northern England later in the day. Much of the far north of England, a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland will be dry for most of tomorrow, and it may brighten up in the southwest as well, although the potential for more showers to come. It is looking fairly mixed through the long weekend. Sunday sees more heavy showers in the east, a bit drier perhaps in the west, and then we're looking at Monday seeing further rain coming in across the country.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dems & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of May. Today, the final countdown to the coronation is on. King Charles will host a special celebration tonight as he prepares to fulfil his destiny tomorrow. The votes are in. It goes from bad to worse for the Conservatives as Labour gains seats in local elections across the country. We've got reporters out and about with the latest reaction.
Meanwhile, Labour managed to hold Newcastle, Sunderland and South Tyneside. They've got the Mayor of Middlesbrough overnight as well. But counting continues here in the North East and indeed across the rest of the country on what looks like a bad night for the Conservative Party. We'll have the very latest.
Yes, but what could this mean for Rishi Sunak? One Tory councillor who lost his seat has blamed Westminster as a key factor in his party's performance. But the Prime Minister says his party will continue to deliver.
We're making progress in key election battlegrounds like Peterborough, Bassetlaw, Sandwell. But the message I am hearing from people tonight is that they want us to focus on their priorities and they want us to deliver for them.
And it's never too late to relive your dreams. We meet the 90-year-old former dancer and model who's been invited to the Queen's coronation all the way back in 1953.
Well, a very good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
And welcome to Buckingham Palace. We've got a prime seat for you. Well, we've had it all week. Going to have it all weekend as well, as we're building up to the coronation tomorrow. And it's just, the atmosphere is really palpable now. Things are really building up. All the flags are out. People are gathered. They're on the Mall. The security, the police, the soldiers, they're all out doing those last-minute practices and rehearsals. And you just get a sense it is going to be a momentous day tomorrow.
Oh, it absolutely will be. It's a hub of activity here outside the palace. Lots going on behind us. Some tourists have just started to come out. They're obviously up for the day, and lots of people camping out across the Mall. Lots of people coming up with their tents today and pitching a spot, obviously hoping to capture a glimpse of everything that's going to be going on in just over 24 hours' time. Do keep your thoughts and views coming in. Are you looking forward to tomorrow? What are your plans? Will you be tucking into a coronation quiche?
Ah, yes.
Because Chris has been in touch saying, well, I don't like broad beans, spinach or tarragon, but somehow the coronation quiche tastes delicious.
That's what we need to know, Chris.
That's what we need to know, because Stephen is a fan.
I'm a fan. Well, I haven't tried it yet, but I am going to make one, because
I
like all of those things. Well, have I had time to cook?
To be fair, you've
I've
been
had
here.
time to cook. No chances yet.
Well, see if you can knock one up this afternoon.
Oh, right, yes.
Just in between everything else you've got to do.
See what I can do.
See if you can knock up coronation
I
quiche.
won't bring
We'll
any in, because you don't like it. You don't like quiche.
But I don't really like the key ingredients, so maybe I need to try it.
Maybe
I'm a
that's all right.
coronation chicken girl. I'm going to be very traditional with this. I think we should be sticking to coronation chicken. But do let us know what you think at home. What will you be cooking up for tomorrow? Or have you got something totally different? I've seen coronation macarons, which are French.
Macarons.
Macaroons?
Macaroons.
How do you say it?
Macaroon. Like Mrs. Overall. Macaroon.
We're getting a nod from cameraman Joe there. He's with you on this one.
Thank you, yes.
Do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Never heard that before.
I thought that's
There
where
you
you said it anyway.
No. Oh, you see, every day's a school day.
Every day's a school day.
Now, of course, amidst all the excitement here, there's a lot of, excitement.
baking, yeah.
Well, a lot of excitement in the Labour Party this morning. Not so much with the Conservatives, as the results continue to come through from the elections in England yesterday.
Yes, the Conservative results are looking bleak, but the spoils are being divided between Labour and the Liberal Democrats.
Now, we're not getting a full picture at the moment. Only 64 councils have been counting overnight, most of them doing it in the daytime. So we're not going to know the full extent of the picture until really later on this evening.
Well, our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, is in Middlesbrough for us now. And Darren, results will be out a little bit later on this afternoon, but Labour's Chris Cook has replaced Andy Preston as mayor there, hasn't he?
Yeah, very good morning, Ellie and Stephen, from a reasonably miserable Middlesbrough this morning, and it has been pretty miserable, it must be said, for the Conservative Party, not just across the North East, but indeed across most of the country last night, as you say, as those counts rolled in. Here in Middlesbrough, a bit of an upset. Andy Preston, who has been the mayor since 2019, kicked out in a pretty slim vote. Only 760 votes in the end, replaced by Labour's Chris Cook. So again there for Labour. And that has been kind of the narrative that we've seen here in the North East over the last couple of hours or so. Labour winning some council seats in Hartlepool. They're now effectively in control of that council as well. And they've managed to hold on to Newcastle, South Tyneside and Sunderland. Now, this should, of course, be traditional Labour territory, and we're expecting to see that a little later on again here in Middlesbrough when we get the full council results around mid-afternoon. Overall, though, Labour have clearly made inroads in some of their key target seats, whether that's down in the Midway, in Kent, whether that's in places like Stoke in the Midlands, where effectively they need to win back those council seats if they're going to build towards the next general election. As for the Conservative Party, as I say, it's been a very, very difficult night indeed. The upper ends of the expectations that the Conservatives were setting, that they could lose 1,000 councillors yesterday, well, that looks now like it is entirely possible. We have to wait and see. Most votes only in terms of the count getting underway this morning, but that is possible. That is a worst case scenario for the government. As for Labour, they have done well, but they have had, as you say, split the spoils with the other opposition parties. The Lib Dems have clearly done well winning Windsor. We know the Greens have managed to pick up seats in different parts of the country. So Labour have done well, but probably not quite as well as they needed to do. They will be the largest party in local government after today, though when you listen to polling experts, they would expect Labour to be around 10% in an overall national poll lead from the Conservative Party. It's looking around 8% at the moment. But be in no doubt, the main narrative thus far from these local elections is that it's been a shocker, frankly, for the Conservatives.
Okay, Darren, thanks very much indeed. Well, as you say, it's looking like it's been a pretty good night for the Labour Party. Good enough? I mean, that's the big question. When we say haven't got all the results through yet, but let's talk to Shabana Mahmood, who's been the national campaign coordinator for Labour. Really good to see you this morning. I mean, look, you must be delighted with the results you've had so far. But is it enough? Is it going to be? Is it in as much as you wanted?
Well, we are very pleased with the set of results that we've had, and we believe that when you map these results onto the constituencies that we need to win at the next general election, we are on course for a majority Labour government at that next general election. As you just told your viewers, we are going to be the largest party in local government by the time all of the results are in later on today. This is also our best local elections performance since 1997. So if you take that all in the round and you look at the areas that we are winning in, we are very much on course for a majority Labour government.
I mean, it's not a guarantee, though, is it? I mean, it's still a long way to go till the general election. Many of our viewers getting in touch this morning saying they will never vote for Labour. They're just not particularly happy with the Conservative Party at the moment. So they decided to sit this one out and stay at home. So still a long way to go, really, for the Labour Party to transfer these votes into votes at the general election.
There absolutely is a long way to go between now and the next general election. It's why I'm not saying it's in the bag. I'm not calling the next general election. I'm saying we are on course based on these results to get a majority Labour government at the next general election. We obviously know we've got more work to do. And, in 2019, we went down to our worst ever defeat and people had written the Labour Party off for a generation or more. But under Keir's leadership, we haven't just got back on the pitch, but actually we are winning voters over in the areas that we need to win them over in order to win that next general election. So that's why this is a really solid foundation for us to build on as we look ahead to that next general.
You ran a bit of a dirty campaign, though, didn't you? I mean, those attack ads that went out on Twitter were, a lot of people just say they were absolutely unnecessary. Do you regret that now?
Not at all. What we've done in this campaign is robustly hold the Tories to account for their track record over 13 years. It's 13 years of Tory failure that we've seen with this government. And I'm not going to let Rishi Sunak or the Tory party try and pull off this trick where they change the leader and then act as if everything that happened in the years preceding that change of leader somehow doesn't matter anymore. They are on the hook, and Rishi Sunak, as their candidate for Prime Minister, is on the hook for the whole of their track record since 2010. They've decimated the criminal justice system. They've got no answers on the cost of living crisis. And it's really telling in this whole campaign. Not one day did the Tories spend any time during the local elections campaign talking about the cost of living crisis. That is the number one issue for your viewers, for GB News viewers, but also for millions of people all over the country. Everybody says it's the cost of living that they're worried about. And you have to ask, why are the Tories not talking about it? It's because they crashed the economy. Rishi Sunak doesn't know how to fix it and haven't got any answers.
Yeah, but the Labour Party hasn't got any answers either at the minute, has it?
We do. We've been setting out our own plans for things that we would be doing if we were in government right now, but also things that we would do if we win the next general election. We'd bring in a proper windfall tax, for example. The Tories are leaving billions of pounds on the table with their more restrictive windfall tax. We would get more money in, and we would put all of those billions towards helping people with the cost of living crisis to bring their bills down, but also making the long-term changes to our economy so that we can have more energy resilience and get bills down in the long term as well. If the Tories had just done the windfall tax as we had suggested, to the scale that we had suggested, people wouldn't be struggling as much as they are now. Politics is about choices, and we do know whose side we're on.
We've just had our reporter down in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, a true blue seat which just turned yellow. The Lib Dems are in there. Are the Labour Party nervous about what we're seeing in these initial results? The Lib Dems have had a very good night.
No, not at all. The Lib Dems every result the Lib Dems get, they say, is a breakthrough. I'm not at all worried about what the what smaller parties are doing in these local elections. Let's wait until all of the results are in. That will give us the clearest picture of what's actually happening with votes across the country. But I'm very confident when you map these results onto the constituencies that will decide a general election, which are being contested between us, the Labour Party and the Tories, it will show that we're on course for a majority. We've got a long way to go, but we are on course and we are setting the right foundations to get a majority Labour government at the next election.
Well, the interesting thing is, though, the experts, the statisticians say even if this was replicated at a general election, they're talking about a 4% swing from Tories to Labour. They say, well, actually, it's hung Parliament territory, so you'd have to start teaming up with the Lib Dems to actually get into government. I mean, is that something you'd be prepared to do?
No. Keir's been very clear, I've been very clear, we're not into pacts or deals with anybody else. We are going for a majority Labour government at the next election. And actually, the swings that people are already predicting, we'll get a better sense of that once all of the results are in. But when you count in the rest of the country, because don't forget these local elections are England only on this cycle. So we haven't had any elections in Wales this time round or in Scotland, where we are confident of making a recovery. When you take all of that in the round, we believe that the swings will show that we are on course for a majority.
OK.
Have you spoken to Sir Keir Starmer this morning? Do you have an idea of how he's feeling?
We've had a quick text exchange, but I was up in our HQ and then doing this media round all morning, so I haven't had a chance properly to catch up with him yet. I'm sure he's delighted though with the progress that we're making.
Well, I'm sure he'll be saying that in front of a camera before too long. Shabana Mahmood, really good to see you this morning.
I think he'll be saying it to me privately as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, go on.
No, you go, darling.
I was going to say, well, let's see what our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, makes of all of that. Tom?
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing what the different parties are saying, because all parties can point to some areas where they've done perhaps better than expected. Although I think the narrative that is emerging, that this has been a good night for the Labour Party, is true. They have been doing better in more places than most people. But we shouldn't ignore the areas where the Tories have picked up some seats. For example, Peterborough. If we take a look at the results in Peterborough, we can see that the Tory party has actually gone up by a number of seats. No overall majority on this council, but crucially this is a seat in Westminster that Labour won in 2017, but the Tories won in 2019. So the Tories are very happy about Peterborough. However, of course, the big wins of the night, Stoke-on-Trent is one big example that the Labour Party is very, very pleased about. It went from no overall majority to Labour picking up over a dozen seats, and indeed this is crucial because 3 parliamentary constituencies there are in Stoke-on-Trent, all of them Tory. The Labour Party will be looking to win them. But also, Medway Council is a very, very important area. It's one of the 3 councils picked up by Labour so far, but Labour has had a big, big gain in this area. And there are a big number of parliamentary seats in this area that are probably more traditionally associated with the Conservative Party. Blair won them, and then they came back to the Tories in the noughties, if Keir Starmer can win these seats at a parliamentary level, he may well be on his way to Downing Street. Now, interestingly, the Liberal Democrats are very happy about Windsor and Maidenhead. People might recognise the word Maidenhead because that's the constituency of one Theresa May. It's also seen to be a relatively affluent area of the country, of course. Windsor, home to Windsor Castle, and indeed Eton College. The Liberal Democrats have won the ward for Eton College. Quite remarkable win there for the Lib Dems, picking up again on this theme that they want to displace the Tories in what they call the blue wall. So there's a little bit of something for everyone across these results, but it has to be said that the Labour Party is the biggest gainer so far. And we are still early into this process. Only just over 20% of these seats have been counted. But if the seats continue to fall in the way the last 20% have fallen, so if the next 80% follow the same pattern, we're looking at 1,022 seat losses for the Conservative Party. A very considerable loss.
Yeah, it could be significant, couldn't it, Tom? Just a quick word on the fact as well, which is very interesting. Is this the first election in England which required photo ID? Now, we have been hearing some reports this morning. Anna Riley up in Hull was saying that some people were turned away, but local campaigners there were calling it a dark day for British democracy. Do you think this could be one of the reasons why turnout was low?
Well, I think we really have to wait and see because, of course, we're only about 20% the way through the count so far. When the dust settles over the weekend, we'll be able to know the true number of those who may have been turned away. There are some anecdotal examples of this online, and no doubt these are situations that are sad for those that were. Will it have been enough to actually tip any of these seats? I think that's unlikely. I think the big takeaway from it, though, is that through the anecdotal experiences that we have overnight, the people that are most likely to have not had their ID with them are actually more elderly people. Now, those people are demographically more likely to vote for the Conservatives. So any of these suggestions about the Tory party trying to rig the vote somehow by introducing voter ID, if anything, on the margins, it might have harmed the Conservatives more than helped them.
OK, Tom, thanks very much indeed. Now, let's move on to cheerier matters that everyone can celebrate, because it's only one day until the coronation, and the capital is busy preparing for what is proving to be a spectacular celebration.
Yes, the Royal Guard has been practising late-night drills, whilst the Royal Air Force has been undergoing their flyover drills ahead of the big day.
Yeah, well, our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, is here outside Buckingham Palace. You seem to live here at the minute.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah.
Just sadly not inside
Sadly
the front door.
I know, but we've got a tent, so
What
I mean,
more
he's
do you need?
a real winner.
What do you make of what we've seen in terms of preparations this week ahead of tomorrow?
I think there's certainly been a build-up. We've been here since Monday, and I think every day there seems to be a little bit more of activity going on. And also, every day you walk down the Mall, more tents seem to have sprung up with those dedicated royal fans from all over the world who are willing to camp out, come wind, come rain, just to get a good glimpse of the royal processions as they go past. So it's a really celebratory atmosphere here this week.
Yes, absolutely. And part of the celebrations and part of the build-up was that visit from the Prince and Princess of Wales to Soho yesterday. They were talking about the coronation, how excited they are. That went down really, really well with royal fans, didn't it?
It certainly did, and it certainly was a surprise that they took the Elizabeth line to get to Soho. They travelled from Acton Main Line to Tottenham Court Road and then walked actually from the Dean Street exit all the way to the Soho pub, the Dog and Duck they went to. And, you know, stunning by people who were just wandering down the streets, and they were waving to them. They spent around 15 minutes in the pub itself. Prince William had a go at pouring a pint, a new pint that has been made or brewed specifically for the coronation called the Kingmaker. Good name. And then they went outside and greeted the vast numbers of crowds who had turned out to see them. They'd been queuing for hours. Again, it was an international feel. People from all over the world had come to see them. And Kate actually spoke to a few people in the crowd and said Prince George in particular, who is going to be his grandfather's page on the coronation tomorrow, of course, the future king himself, is really excited about the big day. And we have seen them, haven't we, taking part in rehearsals this week. Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis as well. So, yeah, they all seem to be very happy and excited for the big day.
Yeah, which is nice. Which is nice. Cameron, thanks very much indeed. Well, you mentioned the Mall. Let's see how it's going down there this morning, just around the corner from here. Paul Hawkins has been getting the lay of the land. Paul?
Yeah, pretty much. Not a lot I can add to Cameron's analysis there of how it feels down here. There's a quiet buzz about the place, and the number of tents has been growing. In fact, if we just bring our camera forward here, and if you just have a look down there, you can see into the distance the number of tents has grown significantly. The sort of early morning murmur has grown as well, and people are just waiting for what is going to happen tomorrow. Let's speak to a couple of people actually who've been camping in their chairs. We can talk now to Amber and Becca. Guys, thanks for joining us on GB News. First of all, how was the night? You were camping in your chairs here, right?
Yeah, we were. And it was really comfortable, actually.
It's comfortable. I got a little bit chilly, so I put on a survival blanket as well over my sleeping bag.
Yeah.
But we've got all the gear. Come prepared for wet weather, wind, rain, anything.
Absolutely. We're all set, and we're looking forward to another
Sleeping in a chair, that sounds pretty uncomfortable, especially a camping
We've
chair.
both got bad backs, so we can't lie on the floor.
Right, okay.
I've got heat pads stuck to my back as we speak, which is lovely.
I'm taking paracetamol for mine. So.
Yeah, paracetamol.
Is it worth it? Is it really worth it?
Definitely.
Tell me why it's worth
It's
it.
living history.
Yeah.
This is British history. Live. We're feeling the atmosphere. Can't wait for tomorrow. I mean, after losing the Queen last year, it got us down a little bit, and we thought on that day, right, we're going to come for a happy occasion for the coronation. So we're here for that.
What is it about you? What is it about the occasion that's so exciting for you?
It's the pomp and ceremony, it's the military music, it's the horses, it's potentially seeing the gold carriage.
Yeah.
It's just the reality that we're still in a monarchy, aren't we?
Yeah,
it's
and I
going to
think
continue.
Something like this brings the country together, and it's nice. It's positive, and we can celebrate.
Does it bring everyone in the country together? There's going to be some demonstrations around the corner by Republicans.
Well, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. As long as we don't clash in the middle, that's fine. They're allowed to say what they want to say, but we're going to be here cheering them on.
Specific bit you're really looking forward to seeing?
The gold carriage.
Yeah, and all the music, all the military band music.
And obviously the King as well.
Yeah.
And Queen.
And we should just add, by the way, both your families, you're connected to serving personnel. You know, that's a big part of why you're such fans
I was
of
born into a military family up in Catterick, so it's part of my DNA almost. It goes back generations, so we're all for monarchy.
Great, thanks for talking to us.
Oh,
We
no
really appreciate
worries.
it. Thank you very much. There you go. So, nice to meet you too. So there you go. That's how Amber and Becca are feeling about the big day tomorrow, and we're going to be talking to lots more people like that throughout the morning.
Look forward to it, Paul. Thank you very much indeed.
Actually looks like those tents are turning into a second line there, did you see? Really starting to build up there on the Mall, rather than me. Hats off to them if they're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But they are very well kitted out, actually. When I was there on Wednesday, they had the toothpaste, they had their wet wipes. It's like a festival down there. There's Portaloos, you'll be glad to know.
Oh,
I know lots of people are very concerned about that. There are Portaloos and showers nearby.
Good, that's what you
Yes,
need.
that's what you need to know. You're watching and listening to GB News live from Buckingham Palace. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, the Coronation military flyby could be cancelled just an hour beforehand. We'll get the latest on that.
And a close-up look at one of the most ancient coronation traditions that has survived the centuries. This is Breakfast on GB News, live from Buckingham Palace.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the